Audio check. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in a couple minutes, just letting everyone get in here.
Max, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, so when you start, well, I'm already letting people in, so if anyone runs late, I'll just continue to watch that.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
Give everyone a couple minutes to get in here. And just a heads up, we are recording this, which is super helpful for reviewing courses in the future, because we're going to be throwing a lot of content at you guys. So we will have this up on YouTube, and in a couple minutes, I'll start the live stream over there.
How's everyone doing this evening?
Can you guys hear me too?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Howdy, everyone. First day of class. Can you believe it?
Woohoo.
Got everyone pouring in here.
Everyone's probably thinking, when am I going to actually learn anything? Cool. All right. Well, thank you again, everyone. I'll hand it over to Max to kick off in just a minute. Just have a couple really quick sort of announcements for today. And then I'll let Max and Dana do their thing. So as you all probably are aware, Max Matthews will be your instructor for this week, and Dana McMullen will be your teaching assistant. Just really quick, I'm going to do a better job than my first court. I'm taking too long on announcements, so I'll speed through these. But first and foremost, any questions, concerns from our orientation last week that anyone has, feel free to ping them along in the chat, or if anyone has anything, just speak up and we're happy to help address those. So pause there for questions, concerns, anything at all from orientation last week I can help with.
And if you do have any questions, remember to take yourself off of mute so we can hear you, or you can type in the chat.
Cool. It sounds like nobody has any questions. If you do after this, please send them along either in Zoom chat or in the Slack, and Dana or myself will help to address them. Second one real quick as well, just for kind of logistics for this week. So you'll start to see more things popping up in the Google Classroom. The one thing we will ask each week, and I'll send everyone a reminder this Thursday as well, but just ask you to complete a weekly feedback survey, just asking how you think the week went, what's going well, what are you understanding, and what you're struggling with. And all the instructors ultimately use that data and will help to inform the program, and it helps the instructors to improve as well and help to get a gauge of where everyone's at. And then lastly here, for Common Space memberships, for all those that are interested, I sent a note in the Slack channel earlier. If you're not, I think everyone's on the Slack channel by now, but moving forward, we'll start to use that very heavily just for communication and whatnot. So make sure that you have that on your computer. We'll be sending communications there. For those who are interested in those Common Space memberships, please just fill out that doodle poll I sent, and we'll get some tours queued up this week to go over the space and just make sure that you have access to the facility. So if anyone has any questions on that, please let me know. But I think that's everything I had on my end for announcements. I'm hoping that everyone is on their brand new loaner MacBook Pro. I know a couple of folks have had some issues with their machine. If you have anything at all questions about it, don't hesitate to reach out to me, and we'll do whatever we can to make it right. I think that's everything. So with that, Dana, anything you want to bring up for announcements or anything I'm missing here?
Not at this time.
Cool. All right. So with that, Max, we'll hand it over to you and let you take it away.
Awesome. And heads up, Jesse, the YouTube live stream is doing what it was doing earlier, where Zoom is not making it show up over on the YouTube side.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Don't worry about it today, Max. I will. This is being recorded on our Zoom account, so don't sweat it for today. We'll figure it out for tomorrow. I don't want to take up any time going there.
Cool. So we'll get this YouTube video posted in the next couple of days. The good news is it's just a welcome day. The bad news is you won't be writing any code today, but we are going to get you all prepped and ready to go so that by Thursday we are coding out. So my name is Max Matthews. I was lucky enough to be involved with Cohort 1 and teaching over there. The good news is that I will not be your only instructor, and you will get other people. The bad news is that I am teaching more than any other instructor. So you will see me many weeks to come. So part of the agenda tonight, we'll be going over what you're learning, what the curriculum is. But the number one thing we really want to do is get you guys engaged, right? So just because it's virtual, just because we're not all in a room together, we're going to be struggling a little bit to get that engagement up, right? So as a teacher, I vibe off the feedback of the students, and I can feel when the class is a little stuck, or they have no idea what I'm talking about, or they're completely lost. So it is a new experience for me to see all of you guys on video and try and get the vibe of the room and seeing where you're at. So what that means is I'm going to need feedback from you guys, and there's lots of different ways you can provide that feedback. The most important one is probably the raise hand feature in Zoom. So it's a little different on how you're connecting in through Zoom, but if you're on your Mac, if you look down at the bottom of the Zoom screen, you may have to move your mouse to have it pop up. There's going to be a little reactions button. And so if you click on reactions, you get all of those emojis. Feel free to use those emoji, but what we really want is that raise hand button. So feel free to test that out now. If you go to reactions and hit raise hand, I get a little icon that shows up on my screen of you guys raising your hand. The interesting thing about raise hand is it stays up until you clear it. So what that lets me do is ramble on and on and on, and then realize how many of you guys have questions, and I can call on you and we can start talking that way. So you can, if you've raised your hand, you can go ahead and click the raise hand button again, and that's going to put your hand back down, so to speak. But that's going to be the way that I can get feedback from you guys. The other thing that we'll definitely want to be utilizing is the chat in Zoom. And then at the end of class, we're going to talk about 2 more tools we'll be using, one of which is Slack. And Dana and I are going to be available to make sure that you have Slack installed and you've got that all set up. And then we'll also be using Discord for audio and video. So any questions on that before I keep going?
Max, I just wanted to mention that Carolyn mentioned in the chat that she wasn't getting any audio. So I just want to ask her, Carolyn, I'm looking at your video now. Can you hear us?
I think that Carolyn, Corey, and Jahil, I think you all need to connect to audio as well. Looks like all 3 of you are having that problem. So if in Zoom, in the lower left-hand corner, I'm hoping Carolyn, Corey, and Jahil, you see an option for join audio. You can let us know in the chat if you see that option. Once you do that, you should be able to participate in audio and also hear everyone.
So in your Zoom window, in the lower left-hand corner, you should see something that says join audio.
I don't think they can hear us if they aren't joined on the audio. So I just sent a Slack message and hopefully that will get them in.
Okay,
thank you.
So sorry for the first class getting everyone in. Zoom is an amazing tool. We have been at my company, I work at a small little startup called Tuzag. And we've been fully remote now for 3 years. So it was interesting, everyone coming into the pandemic. And I knew it was actually a pandemic when my mother came to me and said, have you heard of this thing called Zoom? I'm using it all the time. And it was like, yeah, I spend most of my day on Zoom, but I knew the pandemic was getting real at that point.
Yeah, in this first week, everyone, we're going to have, hiccups here and there, but once we get through this first week, we should be Zoom pros and everything. If you are still having trouble joining, if your computer audio isn't working for whatever reason, you can also dial in if that is like a worst case scenario. So I'll send along the dial-in instructions. We prefer if you're on, the actual call here, but I just sent up the dial-in numbers if you wanted to perhaps have, the video on your monitor and then call on your phone. That is an option as well if you're unable to join via the Zoom interface in your laptop. So that's another option if for whatever reason the laptop option doesn't work.
Closed captioning Jesse in the chat, just in case anyone can't hear him.
Yeah, thank you, Max. It's very helpful. All right, looks like nearly everyone is, I'm seeing everyone's microphone icon except Jahil and Carolyn. Let me just send them another note.
Okay, so we'll power through here and hopefully all this is getting recorded and we'll get it up on YouTube for anyone who's missing this stuff. But we're going to get started with some links. So if you guys head to the Google Classroom, there are a couple things that I have posted in there. The quickest way to get there is to open your web browser and go to classroom.google.com. And I'm heading there myself and opening up Cohort 2. And then up at the top, let me share my screen here. So I'm going to back out just so you guys can see where I started. So I went to classroom.google.com up at the top. And I have 2 different Google accounts, so you may not get this screen, but I'm going to click in and go to my personal Gmail account. And then I'm going to click on Cohort 2. You guys probably won't see Cohort 1. And then this is what is called the stream view. What you will find is you're going to get lost very quickly in here because there are all kinds of things that are popping up. So I prefer to go up to this classwork tab, and then you're going to get all of these modules over on the left. If your screen is a little too small, you may not see this, but there should be a menu that should point you out to where you're going. So we're going to try and organize by modules as much as possible. One thing that we found in cohort 1 is we were posting so many resources, we were getting lost in all of them. So the instructors are really trying to organize all of that together. So right in the middle here, you should see something that says links you should have. Links you should save, sorry. And in here, we're going to have a bunch of different links. I would recommend that you guys store these in whatever way you can get to links quickly, whether that's a couple tabs that you leave open on your computer, whether that's using bookmarks, whether that's copying and pasting them into your own notes, however you're going to do it. There are a couple links that we really want to have in here, one of which is going to be the Google Classroom Drive. So if we pop that open, what you're going to do is find everything broken out into modules. Now we're going to store files in 2 different places. The primary one is going to be Google Drive, right? And we're going to store anything non-code oriented in Google Drive. So if we pop open module 1, you should see 2 things, one called Careers in Code module and the other one called Shared Class Notes. Now, this is probably a new learning experience for you guys. And if it isn't, it's probably unique in that this is a boot camp learning experience. So the focus here is not a grade. You're not going to finish this course with an A or a B. It isn't even pass fail, right? So when we do assignments, the whole point of them is just so the instructors can have an idea where you're at and what you're struggling on. The other thing that really makes this experience unique is that it is collaborative, right? There's no competition between students. There is no cheating. There is no looking off each other's tests, right? We encourage that. And so one of the things that we're going to encourage is you guys share class notes. And so I know Dana was an all-star note taker in cohort 1. And so Dana absolutely loved having one place to put in the notes, and all the students really benefited from that, right? So we are turning on the fire hose. And fortunately, your first week, we're going to ramp it up. But starting on Monday, you guys are going to be drinking from the fire hose, right? So there's going to be all kinds of content coming your way. It comes fast, and we squeeze all of this in 26 weeks, right? So the way you're going to get through that is together. So I recommend that you use this shared class notes. Everyone should have access to it. If you don't, please let us know. And everyone should be able to edit in there as well. So if you want to take notes and notes that you want to share with the rest of the class, whether that's vocab, whether that's quotes you hear me say, whether that's resources that you want to jot down, feel free to open up shared class notes and go crazy in there. And I'm hoping that's something that just naturally and organically will form. The other thing is if you have questions that you go, hey, I've got a question, but I'd really love Max to answer that or put it into the notes, please share that with me either throughout class or at the end of class. And what I'll do is I'll go in there and go, oh, you're right, I talked about that. I was talking so fast. Let me go back and answer that or type some notes out for that. Or maybe you want me to add some definitions or whatever it is. So really a shared class cooperative experience. And I'm hoping that you guys use Google Docs to your advantage and kind of share notes. With that said, everyone's learning style is different and everyone's note style is different. So you won't be offending me if I see you scribbling down on paper. In fact, I have notebooks and notebooks around. Oh, you can't see them. Notebooks and notebooks around me, and I get made fun of all the time. You know, you're a CTO and you take notes on paper. And it's the only way that I can stay on top of my day and make sure things don't fall off my radar. So however you take notes is completely fine. Encourage you to do that, but also encourage you to do it as a shared class experience. Any questions? Awesome. I apologize in advance for saying any questions a lot. Just trying to give you guys an opportunity to jump in. So if we go back to these links, this is something that you should save and be able to get back to. If anyone has questions on how to get here, please let me know. I cannot hear you. Does anyone?
let me make sure that folks can take themselves off of mute.
Thank you, Dana. I realized I probably forgot that.
Yeah, okay, one moment. Let's see. Okay, unmute, there we go. This one's unmuted, there we go. Right,
Okay, I'm gonna keep going unless anyone has questions. Okay, so one of the students in cohort 1 was unfortunately missed a couple days of the first day of class. And she, caught up and was trying to get ahead of all of this content. And couple of weeks into the program, we realized that she did that without even watching the videos that we had recorded. So want to do a special call out that all of our videos are on YouTube. And so if you look in these links, one of the links is to our Hack Upstate channel. And when you open that, you will find some videos we already have in here, including a bunch from cohort 1. So there are a couple differences that we made in the curriculum from cohort 1, but this is an awesome resource to come back in and go, oh, I know Max taught us something about that a couple weeks ago, or I'm struggling with this now. Go back in here, rewatch the videos. One thing I can really recommend is that there is a playback speed control in YouTube. So if we open one of these videos and go to settings down here, you can adjust playback speed. And this is really a pro tip that I have for watching YouTube videos. I can't stand watching a video on 1x speed anymore. I have to watch it on 2x. I think everyone's talking super slow. However, there are times that I'm learning something and I'm watching a video and I'm trying to replicate what this guy is doing in code, and I put it on 25% speed playback, and that's what makes it click for me. So that's a little pro tip on playback speed, because our classes are going to be 3 hours long. I promise you, I'm not going to be talking for 3 hours. This is probably the most you're going to hear me talk all week. But I really recommend using YouTube as a resource, right? It's not just for when you miss a class or two. There will be times that you want to go back and rewatch those videos. And the great news is they don't go anywhere after the cohort ends, right? So you can come back to this a year or two later and dive in and watch those videos. Okay, I broke my rule of teaching a structured class, and so I should probably go back to that. So one of the things we're going to be covering this week is project management. And project management is kind of something that is near and dear to a developer's heart, because every developer has to be able to manage themselves and sometimes even work with a project manager, right? So a project manager is often a member of your team, if you're working in a professional setting, who is not technical in particular, but who is someone who helps manage tasks. So one project management technique that is often used in teams is a meeting called a stand-up. And stand-ups tend to have 3 questions. The questions are, what did you do yesterday? What are you planning on doing today? And do you have any roadblocks or concerns? And so the point of that is kind of for you to come in, and most teams either hold it earlier in the morning or right at the end of the day. And so the point of that is for you to be able to kind of reflect, because as a developer, you're going to be working on all kinds of different things. You leave the office with your head spinning, and you come back in the next morning and you go, my head's not spinning anymore, but I forget what was spinning around in there, right? So it is typical for teams to have stand up every day, sometimes less frequently, where you say, what did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? And do I have any concerns? So I'm going to try my best to start class with those 3 topics, right? What did we cover yesterday? Let's just get a quick refresher, make sure we haven't forgotten any of that. What are we covering today? And does anyone have any questions? And we're going to save the first 15 minutes or so of class for that, right? And your questions could be anything on the content before, could be about any of the homework, it could be anything about the things coming up, or it could be current events. Hey, there's this NFT thing that I keep hearing about on Twitter. What is that? Can someone explain that, right? Or I keep hearing this acronym and I have no idea what it stands for, right? Doesn't have to be anything from yesterday or whatever. And we're going to try and keep that to 15 minutes at the beginning of class. So that's really your opportunity to throw out whatever is on your mind. So what did we do since our last stand up? Well, kind of hard to go back to last when you don't have last. So we're going to skip that one for today. The only time I'm letting you guys off that hook. What are we doing today? So today is all about getting in, launching into this, and hearing me talk about stories. So sorry in advance. But what we're going to cover is a couple links, which we already went into. Any of the Zoom, pre-Zoom jitters of connecting to audio and raising your hand and all of that kind of stuff. We're going to go through the syllabus module by module and talk about what all of those words actually mean, right? And we want to start putting together puzzle pieces because as software engineers and developers, your job is all about puzzle pieces, right? It's figuring out little sections of everything and then putting them all together into one final product. So we're going to go through the syllabus as individual modules and talk about what all of those module titles really mean. We're going to do a little exercise on different kinds of technology. What does it mean to be a software developer? What does it mean to be a network engineer? What does it mean to work in IT? All of those different things. So you guys can start having that rattle around in the back of your head of what are different titles that I have heard in the technology industry? And we're going to brainstorm them all together. We are going to do take a break and do a quick little in-class reading about what we're teaching you and what we're not teaching you, and what a resource called Free Code Camp teaches us about Googling and the idea of read, search, and ask. So we're going to do a little in-class reading on that during our break. And by the way, if you guys are just sick of hearing me and you go, I need 10 minutes, I need 15 minutes, I will lose track of time. So I'll do my best to insert those breaks. But if the whole class is feeling like I just need a break, raise your hand and say it. I promise you, you won't be offending me. So after we come back, we're going to talk about celebrating different errors. And I really appreciated everyone's jump on the homework assignment. I had the wrong due date in there. So if anyone has answered that, really appreciated seeing your early responses there. But we're going to talk about celebrating different errors and how that kind of became my catchphrase in the first cohort. Then we're going to go on and talk about this thing called rubber ducking. Has anyone heard of rubber ducking before? Awesome. So we're gonna talk through that a little bit, and we're also going to talk about another term called imposter syndrome, because it's something that you are all likely going to feel at one point or another, and putting a term on it and a label on it is going to make you feel not so crazy. So we're going to talk about that for a couple minutes. Going to do a quick overview on the homework. I promise you nothing hard tonight. And then at the end, we're going to save some time to make sure that you're all in Slack and Discord. So we'll go into breakout rooms there and just stick around. So hoping to get you out of here a little early tonight. But I'm hoping that this is a good precursor for what's coming up. Any questions?
And Max, while you're talking, I just want to mention that I am sending along via text message the dial-in number, just in case as we move along, if anyone does lose audio, they can dial in as a backup.
Awesome. Okay. So we're going to get started with a little class exercise where we brainstorm together different job titles that you have heard that are somewhat related to technology, right? And so kind of keep a broad mind here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Google Classroom And you can get to this by going to the links post that I made, opening up module 1. I'm sorry, go to the Google Drive classroom link, then open module 1 up. And so I'm going to share my screen through this, but there should be a Google spreadsheet called Careers in IT. And it should be popping up right now. So let me share my screen again. And let me blow this up so we can see it.
Can I ask a quick question?
Shoot.
Can you please put the password into the chat?
Password for Google Classroom?
Yeah, the Z isn't it like Z something? I thought I saw it in the chat. Is it YN? Is that it?
I'm not sure. Dana, do you have any?
I can grab it and put it in the chat for her.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. And so just to go over how I got here, I went to classwork up at the top at classroom.google.com. And I went into links you should save. And then I clicked on the top link, the Google Classroom Drive. So from there, that opened this up. We're going to go to module 1 because that's where we're at, week 1. And then right in here, there's a careers in IT spreadsheet that should look like this. So we're going to open it up right now and just throw out any job title that you have heard that is somewhat related to technology. Or you can put it right in the spreadsheet as well. And remember, you may need to unmute in Zoom.
Can you guys hear me? This is Corey.
Yes, Corey, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. I was just testing it, but let me get this link up.
And you may need to try to unmute again if you did. I think the unmute themselves got unchecked. So
okay, I'll check.
Yeah. Can everyone check real quick and make sure you can unmute yourselves? I think it should be all set now, but I think we actually accidentally reset it. So I'm seeing people come off mute, so I think we're okay. All right, if you have any problems with getting off mute, just let us know in the chat. Perfect.
Jesse, I think I'm on the web version, and I downloaded Zoom as an app, but I don't know why it's not.
So you bring up a great point. We are going to, after class, we'll leave some time open to make sure that you got your computers all set up. 4 things you should have installed. Google Chrome, which is a web browser and an alternative to Safari. Zoom, because the downloaded desktop app works much better than the web version. So later in the course, you guys will actually be sharing your screens with us, and having that app downloaded not only is going to give you a much better meeting experience throughout the course, it will also let you share your screen with us. So Chrome, Zoom, the Slack app, and Slack is very similar to Zoom in that you can use it in the browser. But the nice thing that downloading it does is it gives you notification. So there will often be times when students are having a conversation or the instructor's chiming in, and you want to get a notification when that conversation is happening. And then the final app we want to make sure that we have installed is one called Discord. And Discord is what we'll be using for audio and video when we're not in the classroom or at office hours. So if you guys want to just say, hey, want to hang out, want to code together, I've got some free time, I'm working on this homework, Discord is kind of what we'll be using to facilitate that audio and video connection. So we're going to spend some time at the end of class making sure that you all have that downloaded, all 4 of those apps.
Real quick, Max, can you make this spreadsheet editable? To everyone, I think folks are saying in the chat, it's view only.
Thank you. And one thing we'll be doing, let me see if I can do that. Anyone with the link can edit. One thing that we'll be doing, we have a welcome form. I noticed some of you have already filled that out. Thank you very much. We'll be collecting all of your Google accounts there. So in the future, anything that gets shared in the Google Classroom, you'll already have edit access to. So that's one of the reasons why we're collecting that. Awesome. Someone's getting started. Go ahead.
Max, I know that I'm drawing a blank on what link you wanted me to hit for the spreadsheet.
Sure. If you
I'm sorry, you didn't.
No problem. If you go to classwork up at the top, there is a Google Classroom Drive. And so if we open that up, we're going to click on Module 1 here. And then in Module 1, there should be a spreadsheet called Careers in IT. And that should take you to something that looks like this. Awesome. So you guys are already started. Feel free to keep entering things into there, or you can shout them out and I can type them in as well. And just be careful, you may want to go down a couple rows to put your cursor in, because it's easy to type on top of each other when we have so many people in the same spreadsheet. And so even if you don't know what these titles mean or what they do, start thinking about anything where, you know, your mom or your grandparent or your neighbor comes to you and goes, "Oh, you must be good at computers. Can you do this for me?" Right? Start thinking like that. Anything, any titles that you have heard in tech, or sometimes tech adjacent fields. And we're going to go through and we're going to kind of define all of those and narrow in the title that we are training you guys for, and hopefully giving you an idea of how big the tech field is. So while you're doing that, a little background on me. I went to the Syracuse University iSchool, information school, and I trained initially in IT. And so going all the way back to high school, I always wanted to fix things. I wanted to help people solve problems with technology. And as we're seeing from this growing list, there are so many different fields in technology to go into. So I thought I wanted IT. I didn't want to sit behind a desk all day. I wanted to do something different in technology. And I found the Syracuse iSchool, which is somewhat unique in that they're not teaching computer engineering or software engineering. They teach IT, information technology, how to order and manage hardware, how to set up networks, how to do e-commerce websites, all of these things that you don't think of when you think engineer, but you think, well, where else am I going to learn them? And so while I was there, I kept on hearing about all these different problems around campus. And one of them was whenever I got a package at a dorm, I had to go down and they pulled out this big legal pad of paper that had a table on it. And they were copying down all 16 digits of the tracking number by hand. And then they would have you sign it. And you'd go down and pick up a package and they're rapidly flipping through all these pages, right? So I thought, there's got to be a better way to do that. And so I went, I know how to code. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do that. Well, it turns out I knew how to build a website, but I didn't know how to work with a database. So I went out, I taught myself how to use a database and how to store information in there. And I went, I'm ready for this. I need to build a mobile app for this. I need to scan the barcode. Oh, well, I don't know how to make a mobile app. So I went out and I taught myself how to make a mobile app. And I went, all right, I finally got everything together. And then I went to connect to the database and they said, you can't connect to the database. You need a server between the database and your app. So I went, okay, another thing to learn. So I went out and I learned that. And by the time I got to the end, someone said, oh, you're a full stack developer. And I went, stack? What is a stack? And they said, those are all the pieces that you use to put together. So after my third year of college, I actually got an offer from a local startup to be a software engineer for them and build things. And since I've been there for 6 years now and worked my way up to CTO. So I, much like you guys, do not have a formal education in software engineering. I have a couple years of management in IT of higher ed, but never finished my degree. And that's a little point of contention, of course, with my parents, but it is possible to get a job that you love, that you're going to every day. So I'm seeing a great list in here. Let's start going through and defining some of these titles. So I'm hoping that this is a collaborative effort. In order to prevent everyone from typing on top of each other, I'm going to type into column B what these titles mean. And if you have no idea, even if you're the one who came up with it, don't worry. We'll give everyone a couple seconds to chime in, and then I'll take a stab at defining that role. So let's get started. Doesn't have to be the person who typed it in, but what's a webmaster?
Max, can you make it a little bit bigger?
I can certainly try.
Okay.
Thank you, Dana.
Oh, that looks a lot better.
And I'd encourage you guys to pull this up on your computer as well. Even while we're writing code, we actually found a way to share the code editor. And so there are times where you're like, just go back to that tab, or I just need that a little bit bigger. And so I encourage you guys to open these links as well. We'll be screen sharing throughout the whole course, but sometimes it's nice to have your own control over it. All right, webmaster. What's a webmaster? What's a webmaster do, or where have you heard that title?
I've heard it online. I've heard it just in the. I was the EOP, NAACP vice president, and that title was thrown around a lot of community agencies.
Okay. And so what did that person normally
Everybody
do?
was looking to design the website from front end to back end.
You got it. Yep. So their primary job is to design and maintain websites. They're usually informational. They can be in charge of hosting, and hosting is where one of the things in tech is you start using all of these technical jargons and then you realize they're all interlaced. So hosting a website just means where you store it. So the webmaster may be in charge of setting up email accounts or making changes to the website or even designing the website themselves. So in charge of hosting the site and potentially email accounts. Good for everyone? Anyone want to add anything? All right, system administrator. What's a system administrator do? Who here has worked at a corporate job? Okay. How many times have you gotten a pop-up that says, error, please contact your system administrator? And what did you do?
Latanya said panic.
Panic, yes. We could actually define a system administrator as someone who reduces panic. Totally kidding, although that is probably part of the job description. So a system administrator is usually someone at an IT department at a company who is in charge of hardware and software. They will tend to manage user accounts and passwords. And also set up security. Awesome. Full stack developer. I like where your guys' head is at. And after my story, someone should be able to tell me, what is a full stack developer? Anyone, take a stab at it. I promise you can't be that wrong.
Someone wrote, oh, Bentley wrote, someone who does front end and back end work.
You are definitely on the right track there. So a developer or engineer, those terms are often used interchangeably. That is a rabbit hole story that I will go off on another day. But a developer or engineer who maintains and develops code on both the front end. Sorry, let me move you guys over here so I can see what I'm typing. And the back end. Okay. What's a front end?
Part of the website that the user interacts with.
Exactly. So when we say front, exactly. So a front end, all we mean by that is something that the user sees, right? They're at the front of the application. So that's what's presented to the user. You can have front ends pretty much anywhere. A front end could be a website. It could also be a mobile app, or it could be an ATM, or it could even not have a screen. My company makes apps for smart homes. You know, Amazon or I can't say her name or else she'll go off. Or Google Home, right? So there is a front end that is presented to the user even though they can't see it. Okay, so if that's the front end, what would the back end be?
The part that's on the server.
Exactly.
If I remember correctly from the application process.
So anything the user isn't interfacing with directly, but is still very important to get it to all work, right? So a back end, you could also consider it a server. And a back end could have something like an API, an application programming interface, which you guys are going to learn how to build. That instructor really sucks, by the way. At least one of them does.
Max, someone was asking if you said APM. I'm not sure what that person might be referring to you. Does that ring a bell, or does it sound close to something that you mentioned?
It doesn't. However, if whoever asked the question can figure out what the acronym stands for, we can probably decode it together. The letters I used were API, just in case you misheard, and that stands for Application Programming Interface. And so the API is basically what allows your backend server to talk to your front end. And so we'll be using APIs in two different senses. One, we're going to learn how to build off of someone else's API. So for example, I may want weather information to show up in my app. So I'm going to use the Weather Channels API to go out, retrieve that information, and put it on my website. But there will also be times that we need an API that we build so that our website, our front end, can display some information that shows up in the back end. And so it is a stack developer's job to be able to do both the front end and the back end and to tie those two together. Awesome. Questions before we go on to network engineer?
Bluetooth mode. Bluetooth connected successfully.
All right. Network engineer. What's a network engineer do? Well, what's a network? You're all on a network right now, so none of you have an excuse to not throw something out there. What's a network?
We're getting some answers over in the chat. Dominique says, plan, construct, and manage networks.
Okay, let's back it up even further. What's the biggest network in the world?
Internet.
It's so important it gets a capital I.
Internet, the World Wide Web.
Karen, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm unmuted. Didn't realize that.
Anyone else want to take a stab while Karen is hopefully
Can you
unmuting?
hear me? Can you
Figuring
hear
out
me
what's going
now?
on there.
I can hear her. Karen, did you want to repeat your answer?
I said World Wide Web Internet.
Did you hear her that time, Max?
Biggest network in the world.
The internet.
You're all on it right now.
Yep.
I don't think
Can you
you
hear
heard.
me?
Internet. The web is only part of it. Email's another part of it.
I think Max is.
Okay, I've got a bad feeling that I can't hear you guys now.
Yeah.
Okay, I should be on.
Okay, I can hear everyone. I think Max is he's realizing that he's having trouble with his audio, but I can hear everyone. Can you all hear me?
You can hear me, Dana?
Yes, I can.
Carolyn? Okay, good, because I had issues with that before. All right, great.
Give
Now
him
I'll
a
shut up
minute.
and
He's
mute for a
having
while.
some issues with hearing everybody.
Yeah, we'll
Sorry for
I'll type
technical
in the chat
difficulties. Give me 1 second.
Okay, he's working on it. This would be a good time if anybody wants to grab some water or something like that. So as we move along, because I know some of you are off of mute, if I start to hear like a lot of background noise and I'm not sure who it is, I'll put everyone on mute, but just know that you have the power to unmute yourself now as we move along. So if you see that happen, don't think it's you. I'll just hit the button for everyone because sometimes it's hard to tell where it's coming from.
Okay, I thought you guys were all really shy. I am back. Always have a backup. Sorry about that.
All right.
Okay. So I'm guessing we got the answer of the internet. So what do you guys think a network engineer does? So a network engineer's job is to help people get on the internet. So when you're thinking about your home, right? Your home has a modem and a router, and that gets you on the internet, right? A network engineer's job is to figure out, well, what happens when there are 20, 30, 200, 2,000 of these computers all trying to connect into the internet? So a network engineer's job is simply to design and maintain networks, including the internet, and make sure they are reliably online. So
Matt, I'm just gonna speak while you're at the end of that sentence, just to make sure that you can hear me.
I can.
Okay, great.
Thank you for checking though.
Okay, no problem.
Don't forget the intranet.
Yeah. Yep.
That too.
So a maintain networks, internet and intranet. So intranet, for someone who maybe doesn't know what that term is just a network of internal resources that the company employees can access. So network engineer's job is just to make sure that everyone stays connected and does things like IP address management and all kinds of exactly what the name says, designing networks. Okay, backend developer. We talked a little bit about this in full stack already. Does anyone want to take a stab at what a backend developer is?
In my words, I would just say it's a person that kind of deals with the infrastructure and bones, the brains behind the user interface.
Yeah, the database.
Yeah.
Or would that be the mid?
Nope, a backend developer often works with a database.
Those functions.
Yep, API. Trying to think of anything. I think it's good to leave it there. Okay, IT security specialist. So what's a security person's job?
Cybersecurity threats.
Yep, absolutely.
Keeping out the people that shouldn't be in the system, whatever it is.
A couple of answers in the chat. Let's see. Shah said, keep IT systems secure. Bentley said, protect from hackers.
Yep, great. It's typical that an IT security specialist will work with firewalls, which are software and sometimes hardware solutions to make sure that people can't access the network who shouldn't be able to. They can be in charge of audits, and an audit is just someone coming in and making sure your system is working the way you say it's going to work. And it can also they can also work with the network engineer as well. All right, data analyst. Feel like that's a job title that every company has. What does a data analyst do?
Pretty much design and maintenance the database, I guess, and analyze trends within the data, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Interpreting it.
And Alina said, organize data so it's easier to understand. Shah said, analyze data to help business decision making.
So,
said, research and recover trends of data from websites.
So a data analyst is a great example of a job that existed 40 years ago, but it was probably pretty few and far between. And it probably also wasn't a particularly technical job. In fact, it was probably more math-based than it is today. However, it is a great example of a job that has more and more technical requirements. And now data analysts are required to learn what was used to be considered only for engineers for a language, something like SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language. And it's how we interact with most databases today. So a query language just means something where I can say, hey, I want this data set, and it comes back and it returns that. So fortunately, that's something that we're going to be teaching in this class. All right, help desk. Who here is called a help desk?
Yeah.
What did they do?
They just help you troubleshoot, help users troubleshoot whatever issues they have with their system.
And let's give them a little more credit. They also help fix user issues.
Right, yeah.
They also may use something called a ticket tracking system, which is something that we'll also use as developers to keep track of user issues. So ticket tracking is something that is used for engineers as well. When users come in and go, we have this problem. Well, several users may be coming in with that issue, and there may be multiple people involved to fix that problem. So ticket tracking is used so that we can get back to those customers and say, all right, we've got this fixed, or can you provide us any more information, or we need to assign someone else to this ticket so they're able to help us. So help desk will often use a software like that to
I
help.
think of them as unsung heroes.
Yes.
My husband's kind of been doing a lot of that lately, and it's not for everybody.
It is not for everybody. It takes the patience of, not religious, but it takes the patience of a saint sometimes. But it is definitely a critical job in the technology industry. So I'm glad to see that it's on the list.
Susan had a great answer. She said it's the person that tells you to turn the computer off and on again.
Absolutely. If you guys have not seen The IT Crowd, it is on Netflix. It is hilarious, and it will be more and more funny the further you get in this course.
I had a question, and
Sure.
I'm not sure which term this was for, Bentley. He said, is that sort of like interacting with Google spreadsheets? Bentley, can you unmute yourself and say which term that is referring to?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so this was a one ago when we were talking about the data analyst. When you said interacting with databases and being able to call certain sections of data, is that kind of like the sort of formulas you do in Google Sheets?
Absolutely. Yeah. So think about a database as being a spreadsheet on steroids. So you can do a lot in a spreadsheet, but and data analysts will oftentimes work in spreadsheets. The problem that you have with spreadsheets is they work great for a couple hundred rows or a couple thousand rows. But when you get to the point of talking about tens of thousands or tens of millions of rows, that's when you start getting into a database. So a data analyst.
They're not relational Excel sheets, right?
Exactly. So
a phone book is a database book.
Yeah, and so you can accomplish a lot in a spreadsheet, and data analysts will definitely be more likely to be an Excel whiz than anyone else. But they will also often work with databases as well. And I'm not quite sure why I've turned purple. I promise that's not my skin.
Goodness.
See if a quick little reboot. Where's the help desk when we need them?
Well, if you can turn purple, I can fumble over my words.
And Max, just turn your computer off and on again. That should work. If you can't find the any key, I'll help you later. And the cup holder. Remember the broken cup holder? You've ever heard that story?
Escape. I'm typing escape. Why can't I get out of here? All right. Sorry about the camera, guys. We'll get that fixed. You know what? Let me see if I can't reach the blinds. Okay, sorry about that. Gotta look good, you know. Can't be all purple or anything. All right. What about a website developer?
Kind of the same answer for a webmaster, I guess.
Yep.
Well,
someone who makes websites usually from scratch. May maintain them. They don't necessarily have to. They may also be in charge of design. And infrequently also the back end as well.
Ariel Murphy said usually handles the back and front end like full stack, but particularly for websites can include design, she believes. And Shah says design and build websites.
Yep, you guys all have it. A website developer usually stays out of the back end. That's not a hard and fast rule there. A website developer could definitely be involved in the back end. We tend to think of web app developers as being someone who tends to be a little bit more full stack, but a website developer very well may be working in the back end as well.
Okay. Latanya has a question. She wants to know, is there a trend towards designing, building, and maintaining?
Absolutely. So I would say in the past 15 years or so, there has been a new focus on design. And when we get down to line 19, we're going to be talking about that a little bit. But there is probably a growing industry trend to realize that people who write code may not necessarily be the best designers. That overlap in those different parts of the brain tend to not be very common. With that said, there are a ton of resources that we can use as developers to help us when we don't have a focus on design. And it is entirely possible that you get through the end of this course and go, I want to be a designer. And all of the skills that you are learning here will also help you in that career path as well. So I'm going to, at the end of this list, go through a couple things and kind of tell you which titles we'll be cherry picking from. But there's definitely been a trend in the past couple years to focus on design. Are there any did that answer the question?
I think it did. She said thanks.
Perfect. Okay, cloud security analyst. So this is, let me ask an even harder question. What's the cloud?
Cloud is a bunch of servers connected to other servers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is the number one way to demystify it. Everyone says the cloud, right? And you think, oh, my files are up there and they're floating around and I hope they don't get rained on. The cloud is really just a bunch of servers. They tend to be in these giant warehouses because that's how they're most efficient. Tons of people run clouds. The biggest cloud runners are Amazon with a company called Amazon Web Services. You'll be learning a little bit about them in the DevOps module and the deployment and maintaining a server and all of that kinds of fun stuff. Oracle runs a cloud. IBM, Microsoft, and Apple all have their own clouds. And it's possible to borrow a piece of someone else's cloud and run on their cloud. And in fact, that's what my company does. The most profitable part of Amazon, you would think it has to be shipping and products and ordering online. It dwarfs in comparison to the amount of income Amazon Web Services makes for Amazon. So a cloud security analyst is kind of what we just defined the cloud as, with the IT security specialist. And in fact, the IT security specialist may also share all the same job responsibilities as a cloud security analyst. The only difference there is the cloud security analyst is focusing on the cloud itself, right? Clouds tend to be off-site. They are not hardware that you've got sitting running in a company closet somewhere. And they bring their own challenges and how do we secure them and make sure other people don't get access to them. So we're going to say similar to IT security specialists, but focuses on cloud. And I'm just going to put off-site here in parentheses.
And Latanya wants to know, how safe is the cloud? Has it facilitated much more security breaches, or is this a myth?
Yeah, great question. I personally don't think anything in the cloud has been breached because it's been in the cloud. We've always shared information, right? And that is what technology's probably primary use is to share information. The difference is that instead of saving all that information, at your company, instead your company has said, hey, Google, please store this for me, or Amazon, or whoever it is. And I would say that the cloud arguably has brought more security, because now when I go to Google and I say, Google, hold on to this for me, Google looks at that and goes, well, you've got to encrypt that. You've got to have some security around that. You can't just open that up to anyone. And so I could make the argument that the cloud has actually made information more secure. the reason why we hear about more of these hacks and breaches and, they broke into the cloud is because there's more and more information out there and more people using technology and storing this information. So I don't think that the trend of moving things to the cloud is directly correlated with the number of breaches we have had. So the cloud is secure, but it's only as secure as you make it, right? If you go to Google and tell Google, make this available to the public, Google's going to say, all right, your funeral, and it's going to make it available to the public. And so you do have to be careful, but the same goes for if I go buy a computer and go set it up so it's accessible to the internet, it's still going to be on me to make sure that whatever is on it is secured. And so I would say that the cloud is just as secure as the alternative.
Max?
Yep.
Right now with the breach with, the voting and all of that stuff, I've wondered, if my information was secure in clouds. And am I understanding you right that you said it is secure, or is it what?
It is as secure as the people collecting the data make it. So I don't think that storing information in the cloud is any less secure. And with voting machines in particular, they have multiple fallback systems, right? So every vote that gets counted for most of those voting systems, there's a paper trail with them, right? And there are voting systems now that are using a technology called blockchain. And blockchain is a way of verifying that everyone who has touched that data at any step in the process has that logged and is able to trace that back. And so blockchain is a more advanced security topic that we probably won't be getting too much into. But we have a new instructor joining us this year who is covering the security module, and we'll get into things like how to hash a password, which is how to basically encrypt the password to make sure it's secure. So we have, I believe, an entire week dedicated to security and how to go in and make sure you're being secure, and learning some terms there that you'll definitely be hearing out in the industry.
Yeah, it's like those wait, can I?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say it's like the quote unquote like cryptocurrencies or whatever. When you think of Bitcoin, like that's a quote unquote blockchain. Like people think of it like as like I would say a physical penny is kind of like an example of like a blockchain. Like even though we don't have a documented record of like who touches the penny, it always like circulates through somebody. So like I don't know, like maybe 5 days ago, whatever, some person touched it and then like it transferred over to someone else, and now we're spending it for something else or whatever. That's kind of like how blockchain works, but it's documented. So like that's the same thing with your with the way how your votes go through. Like the server like alerts this person, blank, whoever, I don't know, whatever your name is. Excuse me, what's your name again? Who said that they voted or whatever, and they're afraid of their data being like hacked or something. Well, it doesn't.
That's me, Corey.
Oh, Corey. Yeah. So like it would say like Corey logged in and submitted this ticket or file or whatever, and now it's being sent to this server, and this server was held by this person, and it's being processed by, I don't know, a worker there, maybe Susan, for example, and Susan's processing this, and now it's transferred over and to another server or another person, and then so on, and then it goes to like whatever processing place they need to like count the votes or whatever, and so on, and we can trace it all the way back to you, so we can know that it's actually authentic at like, I don't know, a certain time. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. Yeah, you're completely right. There's we'll be covering what's called the 3 A's of security, which is authentication, authorization, and accounting. So authorization is saying, do you have the permissions to be in here? Do you have the permissions to view this vote or to access this banking system? Authentication is, are you are who you say you are? Did you provide the right password? Do you have a two-factor token? Do you have anything like that? And then where blockchain shines is the accounting of it. There is an audit trail where everything is tracked. And so it would be up to the cloud security analyst, or sometimes even the network engineer, or the IT security specialist, to be involved in one or all three of those A's, right? Sometimes it's just their job to worry about authentication and making sure your password's working. Sometimes their job is to go in, just like an auditor would, and go through all those logs and make sure someone isn't in a system that they're not supposed to be. And so those are all concepts that we'll be getting to later in the course, towards the end, actually.
There were a couple of questions in the chat. It may have already been answered. Susan's question was, so is this like a paper trail but digital?
Absolutely. An audit trail could be paper or digital.
And then Latanya wants everyone to know that Free Code Camp has excellent articles on this stuff. She recommends that folks sign up for the weekly newsletter.
Absolutely, great resource, and you can bet your booty that we will be using Free Code Camp later in the course. Free Code Camp is a great resource, and they've got topics spanning pretty much everything on this list. Free Code Camp has something to say about it. So we'll be using that a lot later in the course. So great resource to share there. Thank you. All right, what's a front-end web dev? Already kind of covered what a back-end developer is. We covered what a website developer is. So I would say the website developer is kind of someone who's spanning the back end and the front end. So what's that front end mean?
I would say like front end, they only deal with like CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. So just the functionality of the web page, what it looks like, and then the formatting. So like HTML is kind of like the formatting of the web page. CSS is kind of like the decoration. And then we have like JavaScript, which is the interaction. So I would think of it as like a cake, I guess, maybe, if this is a good analogy. But like HTML would be like, you put in the cake together, and then CSS would be the frosting, and then JavaScript would probably be like, I don't know, the functionality. I'm assuming, so like the taste of the cake, what flavor it is or whatever, the way how it operates. I know that's kind of a bad analogy, but
no, that's a great analogy. And so we'll be performing an exercise very similar to this tomorrow. So don't think you can get out on the engagement. You guys have been doing great so far. Assuming that I can still hear you, that is. We'll be running through a very similar exercise tomorrow, where we go through what I call letter soup, right? All of these terms that you've heard of, HTML and CSS and JS and Ruby on Rails and SQL, and you name it, we're going to generate the list like we did tonight. And then we're going to go through and categorize all of them. And you'll be surprised at how many different terms that you've heard thrown out there boil down to one of like 5 or 6 different categories. So we're going to go through that exercise tomorrow.
Yeah.
I have a question in the chat.
Shoot.
Abigail wants to know, in a WordPress scenario, what would a plug ion? I'm thinking maybe she meant icon. I'm not sure. It's ION. What would a plug ion fall under? Backend for API, or does it depend on the type of plugin, because some are for design?
Absolutely. So WordPress and PHP is an interesting category. Plugins tend to be backend, but that doesn't mean that the plugin isn't interfacing or changing with the front end. So PHP plugins are written in PHP. PHP is a backend or server-side language. However, that plugin's sole functionality may be to adjust something on the front end. And so WordPress plugins are considered backend. We won't be teaching WordPress in this particular course, but WordPress is definitely a term that should get thrown out tomorrow, where we can start diving into that and talking a little bit about what WordPress is and why people use it.
Susan wants to know, what is the plugin?
Sure. A plugin is a piece of code that normally anywhere between a couple hundred and a couple thousand lines of code that interfaces with some other code to modify the original usage. So let's think about a plugin as you may have a website and you may want some comments to show up on that website. You could use a plugin to help make those comments show up and allow users to post on it. So similar term to plugin, which I want to get in the back of your brains, is a package, and we'll be using packages both in the front end and in the back end to learn about how we can use other people's code so we don't have to write it ourselves.
And Max, don't the purpose of a lot of plugins, like you said, because you're not writing your own code, they actually make achieving a lot of things a lot simpler. For example, a lot of people use shopping cart plugins, so they don't have to create their own carts.
Absolutely. A plugin is basically just adding some functionality to code that you're working on. And plugins can exist in pretty much any piece of the stack. You could have a piece that affects the front end. You could have a piece that is working in the database. There are all kinds of different kinds of plugins. Okay, an IT asset. And what I'm guessing here is what we mean is an IT asset manager. Feel free to correct me, whoever added this. Okay, so what does an IT asset manager do? What's an asset? Let's start there.
Can I go, or
yeah, sure.
Oh, I think people are probably answering in the comments, but I would say like an IT asset manager is kind of like, I would think your resources or whatever that you want to like either protect or something, or either distribute that's in your company. So like things that are important, like, I don't know, let's say that there's a database programmer in an architecture firm, and the assets of the company is, I don't know, like the architecture projects or whatever, or the 3D models that they have. Like there's I guess somebody that like kind of keeps track of like backups and I don't know. They also make sure that it moves through their local servers or whatever, so people can like grab the resource or whatever. I might be wrong.
Yep, no, you're totally right. So they typically manage hardware. They could also be in charge of software licenses. They track it, they assign it. There are lots of different programs out there to help with it. But if you've ever gotten something from your company before and you've seen that little barcode tag that has some numbers on the bottom of it, that's what the IT asset manager does. And so you think, really, someone can do that as a full-time job? That's all they do? Well, think about a company like Microsoft that has 150,000 employees, and they all have computers and they all have mice and keyboards that they need to track, and different software that they're using. And so the IT asset manager's job is to stay on top of all of that hardware. They may be in charge of collecting that hardware when the employee resigns or moves to another job or retires. They're responsible for distributing it. And that is a job that in the pandemic has seen a lot of change in, having to do all of that remotely. My brother started a new job in the middle of this pandemic, and he said the only ceremony was I packed up my laptop and put it in a box, and the next day I got the laptop from my next company. And he said it was so weird because you didn't even get to leave the office. You know, it was like done with this computer and on to the next one. But that's the IT assets manager's job. Great.
Question for you, going back to plugins. Mel wants to know, how would you know if the code is proprietary for plugins?
Yeah, so there are all different kinds of licenses that come with plugins. And that's something I don't know that we currently have in the curriculum. But plugins fall into two different categories. Well, I guess three. Plugins are often free. They're just developers who are sharing their code. there's a great term called open source software, where people will not only share this software for you to use, but they'll ask the community for help in maintaining it and adding new features to it. There's, of course, paid plugins or frameworks or all different kinds of stuff that you can pay for. That tends to be proprietary code where you just pay for the right to use it. And then there are what we call the freemium model, which has come out of the Apple App Store and the whole mobile push for apps, where they'll give you some of the functionality for free, and that's kind of just to hook you in to get you to pay for the full thing. So you do have to watch licensing and making sure that you have permission to use the plugin, but normally that's pretty clear and not a huge concern you have to worry about.
So is a plugin the same thing like when you're on Google and you go to the big square with all the little squares in it and you click on there and it opens up everything Google? Is that the same thing?
It's along those lines. I wouldn't quite call those plugins.
Okay.
But plugins tend to be smaller pieces. So Google, being such a huge company, it has hundreds of different apps that it creates. And so because the functionality of Google or Gmail or Google Docs or any of those are so big, those are all separate apps that Google supports. So think a little smaller scale for plugin. A plugin tends to not be able to stand alone. So you could use a plugin to allow a website to be able to check out, or you may use a plugin to have some pre-written code to help show up on your website, or you could use a plugin to have comments show up, or plugins tend to help support as opposed to be able to stand alone.
Okay, so they're like extensions.
They are extensions is a synonym for plugins in most of the time. Yes.
Alrighty.
Yep, an extension, a package, a plugin. There are lots of different terms for them, and some languages or frameworks call them different things. JavaScript, which we'll be using as our primary language, calls them a package. WordPress calls them a plugin. They both accomplish the same exact thing.
Okay.
I've also copied and pasted one description of the difference between a plugin and extension in the chat, so you all can go ahead and read that.
Thank you, Dana. Yeah, and that really will depend on where you're installing the plugin. Some places that you install a plugin may mean something completely different by a package. Some places you're installing that plugin may go, no, that's not a plugin, that's a package. So all of these different places we can code may call them different things, but the core idea is this is some code that is I can install in my code, and it will make it easier to do something. All right, we're going to take a break in a couple minutes. What is a system analyst? So what's a system? I can't hear you.
Oh, hold on. Let me, okay. I just asked him to unmute. There you go, Jahil. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was asking, like, do you want me to, I guess, answer, or should I wait for other people or whatever? I don't know.
No, go for it.
Okay. I think a system analyst or whatever, they kind of like, they check the, I guess, like, they check like the health of the system or something like that, like if the system is running correctly, and they check if oh no, I guess not.
No, you're right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they check like if I guess something is like off or whatever, they replace like either something that's part of the system, like if it's a server or whatever, Like if it's like a series of servers and that's their system that they have going on, then they have to replace something that's probably like physical or either like some software issue, and they do repairs on that. I don't know.
Yeah, so when you're thinking big picture, a system analyst is going to come in and view how all different parts of your company are working. So let's say that you're a shipping company. Well, the people who are driving the trucks are going to probably be using a different system than the people who are shipping you all of your equipment, which may be a different department that is managing the warehousing and storing of all of this. So a systems analyst job is designed to make sure all of these pieces work together. So while they are not a developer themselves, and they probably aren't going to be writing code, they're going to be working with developers on different teams to make sure code is interoperable. It may not be at a code level either. They may be buying off-the-shelf hardware, and to use a callback here, they may be using plugins in that hardware to make sure that it is doing what they want it to. So a system analyst is just someone who's kind of that big picture, higher order thinker, who is making sure that the system is well designed, and so business operations can roll out. Scrum Master.
Oh, Alina said someone that analyzes, designs, and implements information systems.
You got it. Yes. Let me put information in there. All right, a Scrum Master. Who here has even heard of the term Scrum? Does anyone know where it came from? So I'm going to say rugby or some sport related or similar to football, although I can't say for sure. And it is basically a scrum is a huddle that you get in where all the team kind of gets excited and gets their energy up. So Scrum Master is typically a project manager, and they use a project management technique called Agile. Agile to keep their team on track. Yeah, we'll leave it there. So basically, they are a specific kind of project manager, or they are a project manager using a specific technique. And that technique is called Agile. And we will be talking about that later this week. The Scrum Master would also be the one in charge of running stand-up. So asking everyone, what'd you do yesterday? What'd you do today? Do you have any roadblocks? And they are famously known for the one cutting people off of going, this is stand-up, make it short. We're not gonna launch into a different meeting here. The Scrum Master's job is to get through stand-up quickly. They'll also be the one tracking all the tasks, and they tend to manage a team of somewhere between 10 and 15 people. Obviously, that's going to be a little different at every company, but that's a general rule of thumb. All right, Devops Engineer. These are all great, by the way. This is exactly what I was hoping you would generate. So what's a Devops Engineer? So what's operations? What comes to mind when you think of operations?
Who runs and controls whatever.
Yeah, kind of the people doing the day-to-day, right? The people who are making sure everything's running and carrying out things, and that's what we think of operations, right? So this is has grown in popularity over the past couple years, but the DevOps engineer is to make sure that whatever the developers create work operationally. So they're going to be the ones who take this code from the developers and send it out to production, which means having end users, having customers actually use it. So they're going to be in charge of maintaining the infrastructure and the server. So they may not be the ones writing the code themselves. They're the ones maintaining the code and making sure that the infrastructure is working behind it. All right. Program manager. This is a little broad, but definitely a term, a title that I have seen. What's a program manager do? So I'm going to add on here.
I think Shaw had explained it correctly in the chat. So
Dana, could you read that to me? I cannot figure out how to get chat up while I am sharing my screen. Never mind.
No problem. Shah said manage and design programs and projects. Bentley said heard program cats. And Alina said manages the program software.
Absolutely. They tend to also be called a team lead. And so, sorry, I'm just scrolling down in chat. They may, I'm going to put it in here because I think it's funny, herd their team members to make sure they are on track. May clear business obstacles in their team members' way. And so what I mean by business obstacles is oftentimes business or operations will come to the development or engineering team and say, hey, we need this done. And so the developers will go, great, no problem. They'll start working on it and they go, I have a question. You know, should we be asking this question? And so instead of the developer having to go back to the business team and get the right answer from the business team, it may be the program manager or the team lead's job to kind of be that middleman so the developers can focus on engineering and getting some hard thinking done, while the team lead may be responsible for interfacing with the business and figuring out you know, what their team is going to be working on. The team lead often works very closely with the project manager to make sure that people aren't at overcapacity or that their team is functioning properly. All right, we're getting close to the end here, guys. What is an automation test engineer?
They test like I'm assuming probably no, like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're writing it, so I might as well just stop.
No. I was just adding.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm not okay. I don't know. I'm thinking they test like the. I don't know. Like it sounds like artificial intelligence to me, but I might be wrong. Like that's kind of like.
I wouldn't quite say artificial intelligence. Shah, I think you're more on the right track of that. Testing before deploying. So software can break in more ways than you can imagine. And so another industry trend that has gotten much more popular over the past 10 or 20 years is, hey, we've got to test this software before it goes out. What has really gotten popular is that there needs to be a way to test this software automatically, because we've got 100 different things this software does. And when we add one new feature, we may break another without even realizing that it's broken. And so automated testing helps with that because it is able to test those hundreds of features in a very short amount of time. It is tied to quality assurance. The way teams are usually set up is that for every 3-ish developers, there is one quality assurance person, and their full-time job is to test the software and try and break it before a user can. And so I'm going to put in here test software or creates test suites, which is just a bunch of tests before it gets deployed to end users. And yes, Carolyn, you are very correct. Most engineers wish there were more QAs. It is a love-hate relationship because it tends to be QA engineers who are telling you you can't deploy your code or this needs to be fixed before it gets deployed. But the love part of that relationship is that you don't have a customer yelling at you. You have someone on your team who can tell you how they broke it instead of just the generic, it's broken, it doesn't work. You're like, well, what doesn't work? So QA can definitely be important.
We also had some folks who were trying to help Jahil out when he was giving his answer. Alina said testing the software and making sure the links and video works. Shah said test automation before deployment. And Bentley had a question. He wants to know, is this like a Turing test or something? I'm not sure that everyone knows what a Turing test is.
Sure, a Turing test is when a computer is smart enough to not, for a end user to not know they are interfacing with a computer. If I'm wrong on that, someone feel free to correct me. But Turing tests tend to gravitate more towards artificial intelligence, yet another field that is getting more and more popular. I wouldn't say that this is Turing test or AI related. This tends to be this tends to be tests at a more basic level. There are all different kinds of tests that you can run. Tests that that only run on a little part of the system. There are tests that are called end-to-end tests to make sure that something works from start to finish. And we have an entire module dedicated to testing and how you can write your code to make sure that it isn't going to break in the future. Video game testers, Brandy, to your question, would definitely, their video game companies would definitely have a quality assurance department. Video games are a huge industry that have everyone from artists to developers involved. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a video game. You will be surprised at how quickly you break your own code. And so the point of a QA engineer or an automation test engineer, their job is just to make sure that things are not broken before it makes it out to the customer. And Bentley, to your question, there are engineers that are called penetration testers, and those penetration testers' entire job is to break into a system. And so sometimes they are part of QA, sometimes they are, and I can't say this with complete confidence, but they are often more part of DevOps because they're testing more at the system level of breaking in after the code is created. But there is definitely overlap between testing and security testing. Any other questions? See, I got my chat up. I'm on to you guys now. UX designer. We have not covered that yet. So we talked about it a little bit. But what's first of all, does anyone know what UX stands for? Yes, Latanya, you got it. User experience. So user experience is a more broad term. You may have also heard the term user interface. And so about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, people were using the term user interface, and they said there's so much more to a user's experience than just the interface, right? They may be struggling to type or maybe struggling to read something on the screen because they may be colorblind. Well, that isn't necessarily directly up to the user interface, but it is up to the user experience. And so user experience is kind of a more broad term that encompasses user interface. So what does a user experience or a user interface designer do? They simply design. And that goes back to the point of the people who tend to be really great coders don't tend to be really great designers, right? Don't get me wrong. It takes a lot more creativity than you would think to just write code. It takes a creative thinker to be able to get through problems. But what a UX designer does is they may use some software. Photoshop is the traditional one. There are a couple other applications out there, Sketch and InVision, Adobe Illustrator. I think that covers the main ones. But anyway, their whole job is to design how the user is going to be interacting with this code or with the app or whatever it is before the developers get their hands on it and create something awful looking. So a UX designer's job is to design the interface the user will be interacting with. Rarely, but it is possible, are responsible for creating front-end code. Tend to be graphic or creatively leaning. I think that pretty much covers it. User designers could be for mobile. They could be for websites. They could be for apps. Really could be anything. Brandy, to your question, yes, wireframes are a part of a UX designer's job. A wireframe, Karen will actually be covering this next week in her module. But a wireframe is a basic layout of information that you want to display in your app or website or whatever you're creating. And then a mockup is another term that will follow the wireframe. And then you may also hear the term pixel perfect mockup, which is basically, hey, we've thought all of this out. We were able to make changes to this much quicker than you could have made them in the code. This is the final version of what we want you to create. Please go create that. And UX designers may even make what is called a responsive mockup. So a responsive mockup is saying, this is how we want you to make it look on a phone. Here's what we want you to make it look like on a tablet. And here's what we want you to make it on a desktop computer. And the reason they do that is because developers are notoriously bad for saying, oh, well, it looks great on the desktop. And then you look at it on your phone and you go, oh, it looks terrible. So designers have caught on to us and have started providing us how it should look on the phone. So I will add that to here. All right, we're going to go rapid fire on these last ones so you guys can take a break. What's a comm specialist?
Communication specialist?
I believe that's where we're going. Anyone else have anything to chime in? Yeah, so I'll just, I don't have a ton to add to this. Responsible for any client interactions, client or customer interactions. They sometimes ban multiple methods of communications or touch points, sometimes they're called. Like social media, phone support, emails, etc.
Since we're trying to go quickly through these last few items, when I would ask that if you want to chime in and have your input heard, please take yourself off of mute and verbally say what it is you're trying to express. Thank you.
So cybersecurity analyst, we can actually cheat here and see IT security specialist or cloud security analyst. For data developer, a data developer is going to be similar to a data analyst. The only difference is they may be interacting with the data or helping the backend developers understand how to interact with that data. They also may be in charge of creating algorithms. Anything else to add to that? Any questions? Okay. Applications. Someone clue me in on there. An application, let's call them an application developer.
Yes, I added that one in. I just always see applications this or that, so I wasn't really sure what to put.
Absolutely. So could be involved in many kinds of apps, including mobile, desktop, and web. So when we think of web apps, we want to think of like Facebook or Twitter, something where you're interacting with it and it's not just a one-way receiving of information, that you're also able to put information back into it. So we tend to group websites into two different categories. It's either a web app where you can interact with the data, or it's something more like a static website. So think Yahoo News, where you can go in, or Google News or anything like that, where New York Times, you're not really adding anything to the site. You're just going in, pulling some information and leaving. We can also create desktop apps. So any app that you have running in your dock down on your Mac, that would be considered a desktop application, also sometimes called a program. And then where apps, of course, got their claim to fame was the iPhone and Android, right? You go to the App Store and you add in additional functionality. So an application developer could be full stack, or may specialize in just the front end. An application developer it's really a vague term, and it tends that older job descriptions are going to be the ones that are super vague and just say application developer. So in those job descriptions, you're going to have to look at what the requirements are, because there are certain programming languages that will kind of clue you into the job that you'll actually be doing while you're there. And tomorrow's exercise will help with that. Metadata cataloger. Ooh, that is a specialized title. I have never seen that title.
I added that. It was actually metadata cataloging manager.
Whoa.
It's not data about data. It's Dublin core data that the World Wide Web Consortium, authorizes, and then we put some other metadata with it for our project up at SU. It is a language. It's in XML and things like that. So I just thought I'd throw it out there in case no one had heard of it.
Absolutely. No, it's so metadata in general, not specifically for this job title, but it's about associating information with other information, right? Which is a meta concept on its own. But probably the easiest example of metadata to understand it is when you take a picture, there's a lot more information than just the picture itself, right? There's not only the time you took it, but maybe the camera information that you took it on, or what exposure it was at, or in the past 10 years, thanks to the iPhone, the GPS coordinates that you took that photo at, which goes back to the security concerns on this list. But anyway, a metadata cataloger, that is a job description that you may see at Google, for example. So someone who is collecting information about websites and creating a quick way to search through all of that information. Someone who manages and associates, we'll call it small pieces of information to make it easier.
Assets.
Don't they use like crawlers or something to like find?
This is a little different. I know what he's talking about, the kind of metadata they used to it's just tags they would put on a web page. And that's true, but this particular context is more defined.
Yeah, and a crawler would kind of be on the other side of the cataloger. So the cataloger is the one responsible for creating or managing or coming up with the structure for the metadata. as opposed to, I'm trying to even think of what that job title would be, which would be the person who's kind of pulling all of that metadata apart and figuring out how to search through it and do all of that.
Data miner?
Yes, a data miner. Yeah, let's put that on the list.
It's a library and information thing.
Okay, quality assurance, I kind of tagged under automation test engineer, so I'm going to take that off the list. But it is a very fair title to ask about. And it's, I'll just put it as the automation test engineer. I would say that all automation test engineers tend to be in QA, but not all QA people are automation test engineers. There are a lot of different way of doing quality assurance other than doing an automated process for them. UX UI, I'm going to put in here as C UX designer. Architect. What's architect doing on the list? I'm just kidding. My boss's title is actually architect. What do you think architect is?
Designs the bare bones of the website, the wireframing, I guess they call it now.
Yeah, so I'm going to say it's almost a combination between oh, I'm losing my mind. I'm ready for a break too. An architect will design systems before implementation, may create diagrams to understand the flow of data, may also be considered a database architect, which is going to be someone who is designing all the tables and the relations in a database. I'm gonna mute whoever's on the phone because oh, never mind, it went away. Okay, last one, guys, and then I promise we're gonna take a break. Has anyone heard of SEO, search engine optimization?
Yes.
Go for it, whoever.
It's when you go typically on the back end and you put in stuff that's going to help your website, for example, show up better, higher on search results. Sorry.
Exactly. So I consider it hacking because it's not my expertise, but it's little tricks of how you can organize your information on your website so that Google is going to prioritize it, or any other search engine. So there are certain things that you can do on Google, like instead of putting a headline in, you could put a title tag in or a description tag in, or you may make your website secure. And what that's going to do is optimize your website higher in search results. So I'm going to say hacking your website structure to appear higher.
Is it sometimes considered kind of unethical or dishonest, sort of, or
hacking?
I've heard.
It can be. Google is very much a black box of people are constantly trying to figure out what makes a website appear higher than another. There are sometimes dirty tricks people play to get their search results higher. However, SEO is very much a legitimate industry, A lot of business owners will go to someone, sometimes they're associated with who made the website. Oftentimes they are entirely separate companies that say, hey, give us your website and we're going to help you get that to the top of search results. And sometimes they do that through Google Ads, where you're paying to get to the top. Other times they're looking at your website and going, you've got great content here, you just need to structure it a little bit differently so Google knows it's there. So one of the more ethical ways of getting your website to the top would say, I'm going to launch a blog, because Google likes to go to websites that are updated frequently. So if you launch a blog, Google's going to prioritize your site and say, look, this person's actively maintaining it and adding things and all of that kind of stuff. The unethical way of doing that would be saying, oh, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to add a space to part of my website. And the computer's going to look at that and think that that's different. And so because of that, I'm going to get higher search results. That is a trick that no longer works, by the way. But when a computer looks at 2 huge blocks of text, it's going to see one additional space and go, nope, these are completely separate. And so there are definitely ethical sides of SEO, and there are definitely unethical sides of SEO. Bentley, you have a question?
Yeah. So my question is it kind of like marketing to an algorithm instead of like to another person? Like, so understanding how something responds and then figuring out like, okay, this will get the best response from this.
Yes, that is, I love the way you put that. Marketing to an algorithm is a great way to think about it. The interesting side of that algorithm is that the algorithm exists in trying to get the right information to the end user, right? And so SEO is kind of tricking the algorithm to get it the information it needs so you can get the information you want to your customers. So SEO, I've used the term rabbit hole. If anyone is using the shared notes, I encourage you to add rabbit hole to the terms list. But in software development, there are often times that, like Alice falling down the rabbit hole, we start pulling this thread of like, oh, this is interesting, or I'd like to know a little bit more about this. And all of a sudden you've made it to memory management and how code is processed on the computer. And you go, how did I end up here? But you keep on you know, going down these topics and figuring out more and more things that you want to learn. And so going down a rabbit hole is frequently a problem that junior developers have, that senior developers try to be a little bit better at, of going down this path and going, there's no good at the end of this. I'm going to get all the way down to learning all of this stuff and go, what good is this knowledge going to do me? And so that's something that a lot of junior devs will make the mistake, just, you know, wanting to learn more and more and more. And senior devs tend to be a little bit better at recognizing when that happens and capping it off. Great. So before you all go on your break, give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Was this exercise helpful for you guys? Oh, one of you is lying. Come on, you've got a thumbs down in there somewhere. All right, we're going to take a break. I'm not going to let you off totally scot-free. There is a link in the Google Classroom, and it's called In-Class Reading. And it's a little Medium article. Medium is a blogging platform that tends to attract a lot of technically minded people. It's not more than a page or two read. We're going to take a break. We'll regroup at 7:45, and we'll see you guys then. And I'll be here if you have any questions in the meantime.
Cool. I actually do have a question, Max. Where did you find that? I'm sorry. Okay, we're going to go back into the classwork.
Google Classwork. Yep. And in module 1, there should be something that says in-class reading.
Okay.
And then the whole thing should just be a link. And I can share it in the Zoom chat as well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like multitasking because my actual MacBook that you get, the loaner MacBook that you guys had sent. I'm having issues with it, so I have you guys pulled up on my iPad, but then I'm like trying to work on my my personal MacBook.
No problem.
Max, I can paste the link. That way you can go on break.
I already sent it.
Oh, you did? Okay. Oh, let me scroll down. Oh, actually, okay, I see it. It's right above. Okay.
I'm making poor life decisions like drinking fully caffeinated coffee at 7:33 at night.
No, that's okay. So, has everyone been dismissed yet for break? Hello?
Yes, you are dismissed, and you can come back at 7:45.
And I have a quick question for you.
Shoot.
Because sometimes I'm between a couple of different windows, and some folks were having difficulty staying connected to Zoom.
Okay.
I found it was really helpful for me to keep the doorbell for when people drop and when they come back in. That was helpful for me because sometimes I would look over and not know how long a person was sitting there. But I don't think it might have been more than a minute or so. But was it really distracting to you when I had the doorbell on? Does it make a difference to you whether or not the bell?
No, definitely leave it on. And I would say we might even want to try with disabling the waiting room and just letting people in. And if it's a problem, obviously we can turn it right back on. But that may be something that we can do as a trial run.
Okay.
But the doorbell definitely didn't bother me if that's the easier thing to do.
Okay, I'll leave it on for the rest of the night. And then before we meet up again tomorrow, see what we can do about disabling the waiting room. My only question is, will all of the students have to have a personal Zoom account in order for us to maintain some type of security when they come in?
I don't think so. Maybe that's something that we can try tomorrow. Either you or I can sign into the Hack Upstate teacher account.
Right.
And then I can try and come in like not signed in on Zoom. I thought it was as simple as unchecking enable waiting room under security.
I believe that it is, but I know that Zoom forces you to do some type of authentication.
Okay.
And if you're not doing the waiting room, then I think it forces something else.
Gotcha.
Oh, I'm sorry to butt in. I wanted to just say that that's the issue that I was having on my loaner MacBook. I was not able to log into the meeting, even though I clicked on the link. It kept on asking for a password for the meeting. But when I logged in on my iPad or my personal, or even my iPhone, I was able to. So that's why I was like, I don't know if it's the wonkiness of the MacBook or if it's Zoom itself.
Yeah, well, I'll take a closer look at that tomorrow or later on tonight, because I know that, I mean, Max, and I know you're well aware of the security, of the increase in security for Zoom. So at the very least, I do know that it forces us to do some type of authentication. And if we're not going to do a waiting room, I think that the only other option that there were two other options, and the one that I felt was the easiest was to just ask everyone to have a personal Zoom account. So that way we could avoid the waiting room altogether.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the way to go, just because, how many classes do we have? So it may just be easier over the course of the whole program just to have people be able to come right in. Okay. But yeah, I'm happy, however I can help out in testing that, I'm happy to.
Okay. And that makes sense to me because, I mean, the personal Zoom account is free. So
yes,
it's only going to benefit the students to have an account. So I'll take a closer look at that and I'll get back to you tomorrow.
Perfect. Sounds good.
All right. I'm going to take my break.
Feel free for anyone else to shout out questions too. You're officially on break, but if you have questions, I'm around.
Cool. Max, you gave out an assignment and it was hard for me to hear. What was that?
There's an in-class reading. So if you go to Google Classroom and click on classwork up at the top, about halfway down in module 1, there should be something that says in-class reading, and then there's a link there to a Medium article.
Perfect. Okay, got it. I see it. Awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what I missed because I came late, and I know this is probably going to be a reoccurring thing because of my job.
Sure, no problem. You missed more of me.
Yeah, I know. That's I'm so unfortunate. I wish I was able to see the beginning and the introduction because this
the
is
good news is you can. We
I
are
can.
recording this.
Nice.
So normally we will be live streaming this onto YouTube. However, we tested it earlier, ran into this problem, fixed the problem, and then ran into the issue again. So the good news is that we have a backup recording mechanism. So this will be on YouTube in the next 2 to 3 days, I would say. And then every course from this point forward will be live streamed on there and then cataloged as well. So you can just catch up on those videos. The link is in, if you're in Google Classroom, there is a section under coursework called links you should save. And under there is our Hack Upstate YouTube channel. So I would recommend saving that channel because that's where all the course videos will be accessible. Or you can just go to YouTube and type in Hack Upstate and we'll come right up as well.
What's the class code? Dropped in the chat somewhere, right?
Yeah, I believe it did.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I only have like the documented list of like 6:23 p.m. So that's okay. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, we definitely want to make sure we get you into the Google Classroom because there will be assignments that we collect in there.
Okay. Is it through the email? Like,
oh, yep, I got the.
It's YN7ZZCL.
Oh, okay.
I'll drop it in the
YN7
ZZCL. I just dropped it in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
And then I have a question that's totally class related,
Sure.
and I might need an IT specialist to help me, or I don't know. So my kid downloaded Discord on my phone. She's been using it previously just for video games.
Okay.
Do you know how to like log out without deleting her account? Because the only thing that I see is disable account or delete account. I don't see like a log out.
So there should be the ability, and I am not a Discord expert, but I believe there's a way to add a second Discord server.
Okay.
And that's what you'll probably want to do is you don't have to log out. You can be involved in multiple Discord servers. And that's what should allow you to use multiple like accounts.
Okay.
Are you on iPhone or Android?
Well, I'm on iPhone and I signed up for Discord. Like I made my own account on the computer and stuff, but I want to be able to get the updates from class.
So the good news is the majority.
I can't figure it out on my phone because she's already logged in.
The good news is the majority of the updates will be coming through on Slack. So the setup that we're planning on using is that Slack will be our primary kind of chat source or text-based chat. And the reason why we're doing that is Slack is kind of the business standard in terms of programs that businesses use to communicate. The other reasoning behind that is we've got a pretty big Slack community of about 500 Hack Upstate members. And so it's good to get you interconnected in with that. With that said, we will be using Discord for anything outside of class or office hours. So we want to get all the students set up on that. So down the road, you guys could like work on a homework project together or just kind of have a joint place where you can hop in a video call and just get to talking. So Discord won't be our primary method of communication. I would say Zoom is probably the top one because that's where class will be every night. Slack will be a close second, and then we do want to get everyone set up on Discord as well.
Cool. So I got a question too. So I just joined the classroom, and now I see that we have a couple assignments, like you said before.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if I missed it or not, but like if this is redundant, then please bear with me. So for like languages that you guys are going to teach during this boot camp and careers in code, is it going to be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and something else, or just
HTML, CSS, JavaScript? We're going to teach SQL and a couple others, but that assignment isn't due until tomorrow for good reason.
Oh,
we're
okay.
not,
Yeah.
We haven't covered that yet. So that is what we're going to go through in the curriculum. We're just going to go through the curriculum, kind of talk through module by module and break down any terms that may be in the curriculum. And then I believe you have made it to the end of my outline. Oh, you're going to get a couple more anecdotes from me because, you know, I like to talk.
No, that's fine. No, I was just wondering if I like, I don't know, came a little bit too late and I missed some of the answers or something.
Nope, you're good.
Okay.
And the course isn't graded. There's no competition among the students. We're not going to give out an A or a B at the end of it. The whole point of the homework, starting next week, it will be more code oriented. But the point of the homework is, as instructors, we're shooting for 15 to 30 minutes of homework a night to hopefully be respectful of you know, any other commitments or work or anything like that you have going on. But it's just a chance for us to check in and make sure that the content that we're teaching is being absorbed, because especially in the remote setting, it can be hard to tell when people are falling behind. So the homework isn't something you should stress about. It's not something that if you turn it in a day late, you're going to get yelled at for. It's just a way for us to touch base and track progress.
Okay. No, I mean, that's cool that there's no grades. But I'm just wondering, like, so what happens after graduation? And is there like I guess like job opportunities that arises after the fact, or?
Absolutely. So Laura is actually on this call with us. I'm not sure if she's available right now, but she's going to be helping with all kinds of career opportunities.
Hey, I'm here.
Awesome. I'll let you take over then.
Well, honestly, my boyfriend just said, "Are you on a break?" and started talking to me about something else, and then I heard my name. So could you repeat the question?
Yeah. I was saying, like, so this is not graded. Basically, well, what I was gonna ask before was pretty much, is like getting placed in a job based on your performance, since it's not like you know, like graded. Is it like based off of like engagement and seeing how well we absorbed like the materials in this course or something?
Yeah, that is a wonderful question. So the ability to get the job is more about your demonstration of proficiency, and sometimes it depends on the employer and the position they're hiring for, not even your proficiency, but your ability and self-motivation and drive to learn. So from this program, just going through this program is going to say a lot. If you can make it through this program and come to all the classes, finish all the work, and having a letter of reference from this program is huge. The other things we're going to go through in the career modules is how to network, how to meet people. So putting yourself in the right position with the employers who are looking for someone who not only has the skills that you're developing, but the qualities that they're looking for to hire.
Okay, cool.
Can I add to that?
Of course.
So Jahil, the fact that we're not putting you all on a formal grading system does not mean that we don't have metrics set up. We're definitely looking at how much progress you make with each homework assignment, each step along the way with putting in the pieces towards your capstone, etc. Professors when they pass you from one professor to the next, from one module to the next. Because I am one, we definitely will be having discussions on who's progressing, who's not, who seems to need a little more help. We'll be talking amongst ourselves about how we can make things maybe easier for you all to understand so that you do make more progress. So there's always that balance of, are we doing what we can as far as TAs and instructors to make sure that you grasp the subject matter in relation to the amount of work that you all are getting done. Now, if we take a look at a particular module and we see that a great majority of the class is not making any progress, we'll take a look to see what we can do so that everyone gets it. But if the great majority is progressing and it's maybe just one or two who, for whatever reason, are not getting the assignments done, then that'll be a different strategy. One-to-one outreach to say, hey, how can we help you? Is there something outside of class that is preventing you from progressing? So, and realize that this type of program takes a lot of muscle memory. You will still be in learn mode after you graduate. Careers in Code prepares you for entry level work as a coder and a programmer and a web developer. This lays the foundation for you to do a number of different things after you graduate, and we offer Laura as the career coach to help you to decide where you want to go. I was a graduate of Cohort 1. Some of us took on internships, some of us went to work. I did both. There was someone who was already employed as a software developer. Going through this program helped him with his current job. We had a few people who went back to school. So what you want to do, ultimately, a lot of that will depend on what your direction is.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, by all means, it's fine that there's no grades. I mean, I was under the assumption that like we're trying to like put more people in the workforce as possible. So like, I wasn't thinking that you guys are gonna have like a gatekeeping system where it comes to that or whatever. No, no, but like I mean, I think it's really good what you guys are doing and that you're really accommodating. And I didn't know. I mean, grades are okay, and I mean, I really don't care for it or not. I mean, I was just trying to understand the system that you guys got going on.
Yeah, we prefer not to use the term grade. Like you'll hear us say it in terms of, are you making progress or are you not? So when it comes to evaluating you and your classmates, are you making progress or not? Are you, and what can we do to help in that? Because you have a whole capstone that is going to be required at the end of this. And we definitely have checkpoints along the way to make sure that you all are making good progress.
Right. That's cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just also want to say I appreciate grades being equated to gatekeeping, because that's certainly, I don't know about everyone else, but that's certainly how I felt in school. So
we have had some I wouldn't call them debates, but I've had some interesting discussions with former students on the roles of grades and how assessing doesn't necessarily mean punishing, right? It is solely we want to make sure that you guys are all getting through the program and have the resources you need to do that. And that doesn't just go on the academic side as well. That goes on Laura being able to come in and connect you with the huge employer network Hack Upstate has. And, we are a true boot camp in the sense that we're not just, giving you education and saying, go run free. We're going to focus on some topics that you wouldn't get in a traditional higher ed setting. We're going to go through, your resume and spiffing it up and making sure that makes sense. And we're going to go through a bunch of different things. We're not going to directly put you head to head with other classmates and, recommend one over another. but there will definitely be times that a job opportunity comes up where a couple of you may apply to it, right? And so it's we don't mean to make it competitive, but the job market naturally is. Our job is just to give you the tools that we can to help you succeed in it. And that is largely on the technical and coding side. But one thing that I absolutely love doing is I call it flipping the table interviews, where I'll sit down with someone and in my job role, I have done a lot of hiring. We did a hiring round right at the beginning of the pandemic. And in 3 weeks, in 2 weeks, we had 300 applicants for a job. To give you some perspective on that, before the pandemic, we had it open for 3 months and got 20 applicants. So the job market is definitely very hot, especially the remote job market. But I have hired people. I'm pretty proud of my interview. And so what I do is I give you the interview and we sit down one-on-one, over video and have the interview. And then I flip the table, hand you the questions and say, ask me these. And so you go through and I give you the answer you just gave me, but just tightening it up a little bit, cutting a little part out or coming up with a better phrasing around it. And so those kinds of mock interviews, it won't just be me. That opportunity will be coming later in the course, where we are career focused. It isn't just, hey, go learn all of this stuff and then good luck, into the workforce you go. We do have a lot of resources set up for you, and super excited for Laura to be joining the team this cohort to be helping with that.
And I just wanted to add one last thing, because I know you're ready to start teaching again, Max. I have a confession. I definitely was not a star pupil, and realized.
And we let her back anyway.
And you let me back anyway, and they hired me, and yada 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 yada. So that tells you that there was something about me that a grading system or the traditional classroom sense of how you measure a student, the boot camp was way more than that, than helping me to meet my goals. It helped me to have confidence in my own self-determination, which 2 months before I actually graduated, I said to myself, even without having a career coach in the first cohort, that I wanted an internship, which was something that I never got an opportunity to have when I did take college courses. I landed 2 internships even before I graduated from the program. So I was already having successes. And then shortly after that, I got another internship and then a job. And I say that to say, without being the top student, maybe not even in the top 3, that didn't stop me as being one of the first students to be out there actually performing some real world work. So I put that out there for you. Just don't let anything stop you. If you think that you can do this and you're putting in the work, someone will hire you and give you that opportunity that you're looking for.
And I would definitely encourage you to reach out to instructors, even though we have different instructors for different modules. I would really encourage you, use direct messages on Slack, right? If you've got a specific question or you don't want to ask it to the whole group, all of our instructors are on Slack. You can find them, send them a direct message. I believe all of them work full-time jobs, so you may not get an immediate response. But I know there is at least one former student on this call that I talk with daily still today. And so, definitely reach out. We're here for support, and that support isn't just limited to the program, right? We're not here only because it's another paycheck, right? The instructors are all here because they believe in the program, they believe in upstate New York, and they believe in getting you guys into the workforce. So if you have any questions or any resource or need any additional resources, or there is no weakness or shame in saying, I'm stuck on this, I need a little help. Especially in the virtual setting, that's hard for us to gauge. And to Dana's point, while we're not grading, we still have metrics, we're still, tracking student progress. But you being vocal in that is only going to help you. It's not going to, drive you to the bottom of this, mysterious list where we're not going to refer you to an employer or anything like that. We are here to help. So definitely reach out. Slack is going to be the best way to do that. And we will spend, I know I'm cutting it close. I'm going to try and get through my stories as quickly as possible, so we have time at the end to help with Slack and Discord. Reach out, use us. I know it's day one. I know it's a lot of talking. Just give us a chance to help you guys out. And we definitely will do our best to do that. Any other questions before I dive in?
Hey, Max. I just wanted to let you know, I think the shared class notes are just read only right now.
Break my heart that no one's filling them out because no one has access to them. Let's fix that. And I'm going to set up a Google group that is going to make it easier for you guys to get access to all of this stuff on our side. Until that happens, actually, let's let me fix this first. Okay, you guys should all be able to edit the shared class notes now. There are a couple homework assignments. They should all take you less than 15 minutes to get through. And I know a lot of you have already done them, so I appreciate it. One of which is a quick reading about why having your camera on is important. You guys have all been nailing that tonight, so thank you very much. It really makes my job much easier being able to see you guys and get that feedback. There's a short little quiz on a couple topics that we have or are about to cover tonight. That's just a touch point, making sure you're in the classroom, you're all getting feedback, and we're making progress there. There is another form to fill out, which is our welcome form. So this gives you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your coding experience. One thing that is tough on us as instructors is passing you off week to week, and everyone and all the instructors trying to get to know all the students. So that welcome form is meant to be a little like get to know you. And it also gives you a chance to supply a preferred picture if you have one for a profile, or say, hey, I would prefer my picture not to be used. I believe that is it for the homework for tonight. I mentioned on break, instructors are shooting for between 15 minutes and 30 minutes of homework a night, with about an hour-long project on the weekend. Brings me to my next point. I wasn't finished with the homework. There is one more assignment. It isn't due until Wednesday, just so we have enough time to plan for it. But it is a link to a site called Doodle. Doodle is a way that we can kind of find times that work for everyone. And so we will be hosting an hour-long office hours, where it's kind of a Reddit Ask Me Anything kind of style. We'll be in Zoom, and you can throw out questions about anything we covered that week, or questions about the weekend homework project, or whatever it may be. We'll host those for an hour. They'll be recorded and live streamed to YouTube as well. So if you want to watch them at a different time, if you can't happen to make the office hours, that's not a problem. But anyway, that homework link to the Doodle is in there. You don't have to submit anything on the Google Classroom side, but just clicking on the link and then providing all the times that you are available, either on Saturday or Sunday. You don't just have to select one. And then what we'll do is look at whatever time is best for everyone and do the office hours at that time.
So for office hours, you're not talking like the traditional one-on-one, whoever wants to participate in that office hour?
Yeah, so it's
Cool.
kind of an open door policy.
Okay.
If you have something that you want to talk about one-on-one, Most of the instructors, including myself, are pretty open outside of traditional working hours to jump in a meeting with you and talk through that with you. So one thing we should probably get together, and Dana, if you don't remind me about this on Friday, I will try to remember it, but getting the instructor Calendly links together, just so students can reach out to instructors if they need any additional help. Also, you can do that on Slack. If you've got any questions, feel free to message us directly. If you would rather meet in a video meeting, that's also fine. We can meet right before or right after office hours, whatever. We tend to be pretty flexible. But the office hours tend to be more of I know a lot of people have come in and asked questions, and other students have gone, oh, I had that exact same question. And so we try to do them together as a communal thing. And we also try to record them because I know weekends are tough for people. Sometimes mornings are better, sometimes evenings are. So that's why we leave it up to the instructor every week to decide what times are available. And then we figure out what works with the class and go from there.
Thank you.
And yes, you can attend office hours if you don't have any questions. We definitely encourage you to make it if you can. And if you can't make it and are still curious, that 2x playback speed on YouTube is a game changer because you can just fly through it all really quickly. All right, any other questions? All right, who's sick of my voice yet? Come on, be honest. All right. So anyone want to give a quick summary of the Medium article for us? What did you get out of it?
Oh, it was good. It was an affirming article about, the power of free coding. I forgot the title of the software. Yeah. And, I saw that as a really informative resource, but also intimidating because it was like in 0.2 seconds, I had to really put into action what I just read. But also it helped me, particularly with the HTML, to go back to my college years where I took coding courses. And it was a refresher for me, and it was affirming. But this article also really talked about the whole industry of coders and computer engineers of, it feels like Legos. You run into a problem, you got to figure it out and have faith. And that's what I experienced when I was going through the initial, prep work. I had highs and lows. I was like, can I do this? But then I said, yes, I can. I remember it. But then, whoa, I was all over the place.
Yeah, and so the one thing that really hit me on that was on the syllabus. It was one of the required points I had to cover this week was how to Google. And I'm like, how to Google? How am I gonna ever cover that? And so the broader point there is that I went into a job interview many years ago, and I'm sharing my screen. I'm working through a problem. They gave me a task, and I open up Google, and they said, no, you're not allowed to use Google. And I said, excuse me? And they said, no, Google isn't allowed. This is a coding test. And I said, please go to your engineers and find one engineer at any point today who has not used Google. And they said, sorry, those are our rules. And I said, good luck in your job search. And I got up and I walked out. I didn't want to be in an environment where they were taking a tool that every software engineer probably uses daily and saying you can't do that as part of the coding test, right? And so Googling is your friend. There are so many different things to cover, and you're going to get lots of different errors. So there are all kinds of different tangents that I'm going to try and pull all together here. The first is we celebrate different errors. And that is a term that I drilled into the students' head so many different times that they would jokingly say it in class when we ran into a different issue, right? Your code is going to not work more than it does work. You're going to get different errors, and you're going to go, my God, another error. We got to get through this, right? and you're going to get frustrated. And the point of we celebrate different errors is that you're going to run into different problems, right? That is just the nature of coding. I've been professionally coding for 15 years, and I still spend 90% of my day working through different errors, right? The point of we celebrate different errors is that you're going to run into the problem after problem, and you're going to get discouraged, right? And why we celebrate different errors is because we solved the error right before this one. So the point isn't get discouraged that you've got another problem. It's to, hey, take a break, take a breather, and say, I solved this. I may have used Google. I figured out what to search for. I figured out who to ask. I kind of pieced apart what they were saying. I may have used some debugging techniques that we're going to learn. And I figured out what was wrong here. So instead of going, oh, another issue, take a moment and say, I fixed that one. That is progress. We're really making progress. So lean into and you know, really don't be afraid to take a break and say, hey, I'm making progress here. Even though it's another problem, it's a different problem. We're getting through this. So that is, we celebrate different errors. One of the things you will find is that you will get stuck on a problem and be ready to throw your computer out the window. Why do you think Bill Gates called it Windows? Totally joking. However, you're going to get frustrated through this. And so one technique that I love is rubber duck debugging. And so there's a story behind this of one day, this guy walks in, the team lead, and he's looking at his engineer's desk, and he's got a little rubber duck on it. The guy's thinking, that's weird. So he asks him, why do you have a rubber duck on your desk? And he goes, oh, that's Dave the debugger. And the team lead goes, what? And he says, whenever I get stuck on a problem, I just look at the duck and I stare him right down and I tell him my problem. And I hear the answer and he gives it back to me. And he goes, you're crazy. Well, they did a psychological study on this where you get trapped in your own head. You're trying to solve a problem. You're not thinking about it differently. You're just stuck on it and you're going over the issue over and over and not getting anywhere. So sometimes you need to, one, get up and take a break, right? This is hard work that you're doing. Go for a walk. Go get a cup of coffee. Don't look at your computer. Take a 10 or 15-minute break and come back to it. Sometimes it requires a good night's sleep. I cannot tell you how many bugs I have solved in the shower. I know it sounds crazy, but it just hits you, right? And everyone has those different points. You know you're a true developer when you are having nightmares about your bugs. I am not joking. That is a thing that happens. So take a break. Sometimes you got to just hit it fresh in the morning, right? If you're not getting frustrated as a developer, if you're not getting stuck, you're not doing this coding thing right. So the other point is sometimes you've got to talk it out, whether that's turning to a rubber duck or a stuffed animal on your desk and just saying the problem out loud, or whether that's going to a notebook and writing it down, right? And so these are some techniques that we're going to use. No one writes code, and I have actually written a blog post about this. When people say they're writing code, what they mean is they are translating from English to a language the computer understands. If you don't understand what you're trying to get the computer to do, there is no way you're ever going to get the computer to do it. So the art of being a developer is taking what you're trying to do, breaking it down in a small enough piece in English, right? Saying this is the one little piece that I am trying to do, and then getting the computer to do it in whatever language we're programming in, right? And so that's the secret. When you're stuck on something, I can't tell you how many times I've been writing code and I look at it and I go, I don't know what this code is doing. I just wrote it. I don't know what it's doing. There's no way it is going to work, right? And so sometimes you take a break, you get out a whiteboard, get out a notebook, open up Microsoft Word, and write out what you're trying to do. And if you can highlight pieces of those sentences and break them into their own sentences, you're trying to do too much in your code. Break that sentence down. No run-on sentences. Put periods in, break up the sentence and go, this is the one thing that I'm trying to do. Because when you've done that, now you can go to the code and write a line of code, right? These seem like simple little things. Go take a break, go talk it out, try and break it down. They seem like such generic pieces of code, of advice, but I'm telling you, you're going to get stuck. And so using these techniques, knowing that Google is not cheating, right? You're going to get an error message and go, I have no idea what that means. And you're going to go Google it, and you're still going to have no idea what it means. But eventually, you're going to get down to the second or third link. You're going to find this wonderful website called Stack Overflow, which is arguably the Bible for developers. And you're going to see all of these questions being asked and the answers of how you fix them, how you solve them. Maybe it isn't even your own code. Maybe it's something installed on your computer that's causing the problem. Maybe you have a little typo. Whatever it's going to be, you're going to get an answer there. And that's going to help you, right? So the free code camp slogan is read. Read first. Try and break it down. Go back to the assignment. See if you can use that sentence technique, right? Read out what you're trying to do. If you're still stuck, search. If you're stuck, chances are someone else got stuck, right? And they're going to be able to help you through it. The internet, great at many things, including other people complaining when they got stuck and people trying to help them get unstuck. And finally, when you get to when you're ready to throw your computer out the window, ask. Look at everyone on this call. They are all learning the same thing that you are learning. Just because we are virtual doesn't mean this isn't a community. And the benefit of having so many instructors is that most of the instructors are all full stack developers. So just because I'm not able to help you on the module that I was just teaching, because I'm in the middle of a work thing or whatever, there will be one other instructor or a student who goes, oh, I got stuck there. Let me try and help you through that. So you've got a lot of resources here. You will get stuck. Just use the rubber ducking technique. Use the taking a break. Use the breaking it down into sentences. Whatever it is, that will help you get through it. Dana or Karen or Caitlin, any words of wisdom you'd like to share that you've learned from your coding experience?
I would say do a little bit every day because it's going to help build muscle memory. It's like anything else that you try to do. If you start and you stop and you go 2, 3, 4 days, when you come back, it's like you're going to have to start all over again. Just you do it every day, and eventually what I would find sometimes is that something that I didn't understand right away, if I came back to it a couple days later after going a couple more classes and being re-exposed to it, then all of a sudden I could come back to something else and I did understand it. So yeah, taking a break, I think that was like the big thing for me. Whenever I felt like I needed to take a break, I got to the point where I wasn't scared that if I took a break, it was a bad thing. Take a break, come back, it was like the best thing ever.
And leave notes when you take a break, because let me tell you, I've been coding full time for lost track of how many years now. And the first thing I do every morning is go, who wrote this code? Because you come back to it and you go, I didn't write this, did I? So it's very important to take your notes. And that's why something like stand up, even though it sounds so trivial of what did you do yesterday? What are you doing tomorrow? Or what are you doing today? And do you have any roadblocks, right? When I'm tired, when I'm beat, when I know I have to take a break, I get my 5-minute warning and I just write notes. So when I come back in the morning, I'm ready to like thank yesterday, the yesterday version of me, because I've left notes. So I can't tell you how important note taking is in this process. and the shared class notes, you may find that that's your ticket and that you can all collaborate together. You may find that you all have your own different learning styles, and taking your own notes completely fine. But just trying, to Dana's point, there is a program called 100 Days of Code, and it's a social media hashtag where people just do a little tweet every day of what they accomplished, and all you need to do is sit down and code for 5 minutes in that day, and you're completing 100 days of code. And so you'll get to day 43 or 44, and all of a sudden you want to take a break and you push through it because you're shooting for 100. You want to code every day for just a couple minutes, and 100 days of code is an encouragement to do that.
Max, can I add one more thing?
Sure.
When we actually had a talk about this during Cohort 1, and I remember one of the things that I brought up was that I needed help learning how to think like a coder, because it's one thing to say, break this down into steps. Well, breaking down a coding problem is not the same as breaking down how to fry chicken on a Friday night, So once I put that out there, we actually took a step back and went into pseudocode, how to break it down. And I think that is another thing that kind of opened up the floodgate for me, because it helped with the translation from the English language into what this would look like in code, and under the different thought process, then putting the code there. And yeah, that was huge for me.
So one thing that is a common frustration point when you guys are getting started is syntax, right? The computer needs very specific ways of an open parenthesis and a closing parenthesis and a curly brace and a semicolon here and all of this special syntax. And so what Dana is mentioning is pseudocode is kind of that halfway step between the language that we're writing it in, whether it's JavaScript or HTML or whatever, and that English that's broken down into sentence by sentence. Sometimes you even need help translating it between that sentence to sentence breakdown right into the language, especially while you're learning the syntax. So pseudocode is a way for you to write out, and you normally don't even do it in a code editor, right? You're going to do it in Word. You're going to grab your notebook. You're just going to jot down, what should this code look like? I'll take care of the syntax when I'm wrestling with the computer. I just want to make sure I've got this thought out so I know what the computer is doing. And so the instructors over the course of the program will help with that, and also leave comments throughout their code of saying, this is how we're thinking about it. And sometimes going back up to the what are we trying to do level will help you in the pseudocode.
Okay, Max, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in. Definitely the whiteboard. I have a story for you guys next week about the whiteboard. You'll see it in one of my slides, but that was definitely an eye-opener for me. And it kind of jump-started what I was doing. I literally made my husband put a whiteboard up on our bedroom wall so that I could use it. And it's still there. I still use it today. It's on the bedroom wall. Once the office gets done, it'll get moved to there, but I use it. I still use it today. I have a small one in my office at work. And if I get stuck and I'm like, okay, I know I need to do this, and I just start pulling it down and writing it out, or paper. I have, like Max, pad of paper right there, and start doing that. When you do get into starting to code, comments in your code for sure. I do that a lot now. I'll get somewhere, and because if I want to remember how I did something, because eventually you'll get to the point where, okay, you're in this file and you wrote a piece of code so that it does something, and you know that you can use parts of it when you go to a different file, but you don't remember where you put it. Write a note.
And
I have sticky note. I've gotten to the point.
By the way, it's just a line in your code that you're telling the computer, don't worry about this. I'm going to write something in here and you're not going to understand it, right? And so there are all different kinds of comments that you can put in your code, because developers know that there's so much that they need to remember. So you can put entire paragraphs in your code if you want. But you're basically, it's a special syntax. You're telling the computer, I'm just going to brain dump in here, just ignore what I'm putting in. And so when we're writing out our code, as instructors, we're going to try and go back and say, this is what we were thinking when we wrote this code, or this is what's happening. And a common joke is that junior developers will write comments for all the code that makes perfect sense and is super clear. And then you'll get to a section of the code and there will be no comments. And you'll go, come on, I needed to know how this is working. So as instructors, we're going to try and go through and put comments in the code, because again, like Google isn't cheating, looking at someone else's code, shockingly not cheating, right? You want to understand how they're getting through this, how they're thinking about it. So we'll be teaching and using a resource called Git and GitHub to manage all of this code and be able to have it in one central resource. And we'll have that linked in the links to save. There's a little repository in there. On Thursday, we're going to get you set up with Git, and then I'm going to run away screaming, and Karen is going to teach all of the fundamentals of Git and all the terminology that goes along with it.
Yeah. And
oh, Karen, I just wanted to say I was so impressed with your story about the whiteboard. Look at what I went and bought. I was so poor when you mentioned it. I wanted to get a whiteboard so bad and I couldn't. But look, I'm working a better job now, and I have the sticky whiteboard that I'm about to put up on my wall. I got it from Amazon. So thank you for that advice. I never forgot it when you mentioned it. And I would recommend students, I would highly recommend that you get a whiteboard, either a standing whiteboard or maybe something like the one that comes with the sticky side that you can just put on your wall. That was great advice, Karen.
Yeah, you might even be able to do, I haven't tested it, but you might be able to do even like just some saran wrap with a dry erase marker too. I use sticky notes. They're on the bottom of my monitor for things. And I know, Corey, you asked about resources. So now I've gotten to the point where in my browser, I have a folder. And that folder is broken down into other parts that I use. So like I might have a folder that's labeled HTML. In that folder, I'll have all my resources for HTML. Then I'll have another folder that's labeled CSS. That's where all my resources for CSS go. You know, if I'm doing forms, whether they're template driven or that's all stuff you guys will get to eventually, but all the GitHub, anything for GitHub, I have a folder, that's where all my resources go, so that everything is right there at my fingertips for that kind of stuff.
We'll be sharing a ton of resources throughout the program.
Thank you.
There is no holy grail. There is a Twitter thread that I saw that is supposed to be the holy grail of resources. And it's a great start, but there's so many in there that you'll be drowning in them. So one thing that we're trying to do as instructors is keep all of the resources that we're linking to in our module Google documents. Don't take a look at mine yet, because I may not be as prepared as I'm hoping I'm acting I am. But I will have all of those resources gathered in there. Everything from the Medium links that I'm sharing to the any link that gets shared is going to end up in that Google Doc. And instructors are also trying to do the same. But I would say keep on top of resources yourself and organize them in a way that makes sense for you, because you may look at a resource and go, this is stupid, I don't understand it at all. And the rest of the class will be singing its praises and can't tell you how much it helped them. Everyone learns differently. All the resources are going to be a little different for everyone. And if you find that an instructor just isn't making something click, ask them for a resource on it, right? Just because I understand something a certain way doesn't mean that I am required to teach you in that way. I have no problem going out and saying, maybe this resource will help you, or this is what helped me understand it and get it to click. So don't be afraid.
I used a lot of books too.
Yeah, and everyone learns differently. You know, there are a ton of books available at Onondaga County Library. The Amazon reviews are a thing for a reason. We used a resource last year for teaching JavaScript that it was right down the middle. Half the students loved reading it, and they went, I could learn programming through this alone. The other half of the students said, this is terrible. We have no idea why you picked this. Is sometimes you get that polarizing effect. So my only advice on resources is, as much as we will share them and you will probably feel you're drowning in them, try and maintain them and keep track of them in your own, on your own, because that organization system will look different for everyone.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I've got one more story. I promise you I'm going to tell it in 3 minutes or less. And this one isn't even a story. It's just a graphic of how you will probably be feeling at some point. And then I will let you all go. But Dana and I will be sticking around. Dana will probably head off to Discord if you have any questions over there. I will stay in this room if you have any problems installing Discord or Slack. And then we will let you go. Completely optional to stick around. And we also have office hours coming up if you need help installing things. So I'm going to share this little graphic with you that I found on the internet. I was struggling to come up with how to describe this term called imposter syndrome, and this graphic really did it perfectly. This is not mine. I don't take credit for this, but at a certain point, you are going to learn something and you're going to feel like you really get it, and you're going to try and move on to the next thing and go, my God, there is so much I don't know. How am I ever going to learn this? And the reasoning behind that is you're not. I have been doing this for so many years, and I still don't know 0.1% of everything that I could know about computers and programming. I know what it takes to get my job done, and I know that I will always be learning as a developer. I know there is always going to be something new out there. And my firm belief is that if you're not continuing to learn as a developer, you are actually moving backwards, because relatively the industry moves forward so fast. So you're always going to be learning. The goal is not to learn everything. The goal is learn enough to do your job, and then learn enough to learn new things on how to do your job better. So at a certain point, you're going to look on that graphic on the left and go, I know nothing. I know this tiny little thing. There is so much to learn. But in reality, it is very much going to be the thing on the right, where you're constantly learning new pieces of all these different areas. And you will constantly be learning that. And there will be circles on the right that are pulling away, that you feel pulling away, and you go, I got to go spend more time over there. And you learn a little bit more about that. And then there will be more things that you go learn about. This industry is constantly changing. The good news is there is a point where you go, I actually feel so good about this, I could do this for a living. And that point isn't a junior developer. That point isn't an entry-level developer. That point takes years to get to as a senior developer, which is crazy to think about. But as a senior, this is one of the only industries where you can start as entry level, and if you work hard enough, make it to a senior developer in 2 or 3 years. It's not common. It normally takes 8 to 10 years, but you could be considered senior in 3 years if you work hard enough, if you've got your eye on your career, and you're constantly learning. The good news is salary at an entry-level developer or junior-level developer is extremely competitive. And as a senior-level developer, it just jumps from there. So there's a ton of job demand. And the crazy thing is that when you come out of this program, you could be going into one of 5 different titles that we brainstormed tonight. It is entirely possible to land all different kinds of positions out of this program. But the important thing to remember is that if you look at that reality on the right, all of those circles could be a different job description. And at no point are you expected to be able to turn that entire yellow outer circle blue. You're just expected as a developer to have your foot in many different places, right? Many different buckets, or whatever that saying is. And so at a certain point, you're going to feel like you just can't do this. You don't know what you're doing. You're not in the right place. And there are days, even now as a senior developer, where I go, what was I thinking getting into this career? But the good news is those days way outnumber the days where I go, what was I thinking? There are days that I just feel on top of the world, that I roll out a feature to a user, that I learn something new, that it is just so rewarding. And so that's what we're going to get you to, is that point and over the hump. When you're feeling this, when you're going, I'm behind all the other students, I have no idea what I'm doing, voice that concern, whether it's to your other fellow students, whether it's to us as instructors. Our job is to be here to tell you it is actually normal to feel that way. And all of you are going to feel that way at some point, and come talk to us, because we're going to help you over that hump. And that hump is called imposter syndrome. Being able to put a name on it is such an empowering tool. Okay, I think my rant is over. With that, I will open it up to any questions. Who here is ready to run streaming? Who here is going, what did I get myself into?
Max, I just wanted to say one thing before we break out between Discord and Zoom. If you all choose to have Zoom open while you're trying to hop over to Discord, you will be able to talk to me in Discord, I believe, but it will not share your camera. And I could be wrong about that. It could be voice and video, but I do know for a fact that if you're in Zoom with your video on, you will have to close up Zoom in order for your camera to show you in Discord.
And so, Dana, what channel are you going to be in Discord?
I'm going to be in breakout room number 1.
Okay.
I'll be there in video and voice. Breakout room number 1.
So if you have any questions for Dana or any technical issues or anything whatsoever, feel free to hop over to Discord. Meanwhile, if anyone is having trouble installing Slack or Discord onto their computer, or needs help getting into the Google Classroom or anything like that, feel free to stay here.
Okay. And I'll be in Discord until 9:30. If you don't have to hop over there right away if you need a break, or if there's something that you need to do, that'll be fine. It is essentially open office hours, and so what is meant by that is that it is literally a virtual office. I'm there, I'm sitting in breakout room, and you hop in between the time that I set, which is between now and 9:30. Any questions? No.
How do I access Discord?
You can go to hackupstate.com, and up in the top right, there will be a link for Discord, and that should lead you through creating an account and also downloading the app. And you're welcome to stay in here until you get Discord working, and then you can go hop over and chat with Dana and call it an evening.
And I'm just putting a note in the chat that I'll be in breakout room number 1.
Okay.
All right. And I've also put another note in the chat reminding folks that if you want my assistance over in Discord, that you will need to close out of Zoom, because both the video apps, they can't share. It's either one or the other. All right.
And anyone at this point, feel free, if you have questions about anything tonight or what's upcoming in the program, or need help with Slack or Discord or anything else, feel free to shout it out now. Otherwise, get out of here.
Great class, Max. I had a lot of fun, too much fun.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bye-bye now. Over to Discord, or stay here with Max. Either or is fine with me. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Max. Thank you,
No
Dana.
problem.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Max.
Everybody.
Thanks, Max.
Night.
Yeah. Finally figured out all these audio issues. All right.
Don't forget your homework in Google Classroom.
I actually have been checking on it all the time, thinking I've got more due than I